Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Worldwide Wednesday, where we talk about foreign affairs and what's going on in the world. Unfortunately, most of what's going on in the world is the genocide of Palestine. Now, I'm not wearing my sweater today because I have been getting ludicrously hot. So I'm trying to cover the label here because it's just an old work shirt. But we'll have to figure out my new wardrobe eventually at some point today. Not today. But all of that to say, I'm figuring out this beret thing, so that's kind of cool. And I do like the contrast of this outfit, and I think it fits right well. Yeah, I think that looks really good. Awesome, so we'll stick with this. Probably have a t-shirt from now on, maybe. We'll see. As the stream elements has so kindly pointed out, we're going to be covering, of course, Israeli war crimes, because of course they are ongoing. We are going to be covering Mexico. They've built lots of hospitals since the Claudia took over the presidency, and you know, a few other fun facts like India giving Trump the old "didn't hear you." Greetings, Anna. And thank you for your vote of confidence. That matters. We already have the queer community. Now we need the Latino community and the female community. We need all the communities, because we're probably not going to get cis white men, unironically, because it would be gay to have empathy and sympathy for other demographics. So as long as we can get everybody else, we're winning. So we will start off with Gaza, and then I guess hit a couple more Gaza. But there is a boatload to cover today. We'll see how far we get. Lots of protests, and then actually some good news too. Solar panels to Africa and whatnot. So I think we can just jump right in it and go from there.
Sorry to interrupt. But this
no,
is
you're not sorry, because you wouldn't have paid for that fucking ad if you were truly sorry, you piece of shit.
Strike on a southern Gaza hospital has now killed at least 20 people. Israel's military says it carried out a strike in the area of Nasser.
Like, don't get me wrong, I was under the impression that like Gaza doesn't have any more hospitals. Or am I misunderstanding the geography of what keeps getting attacked? Because I know Palestine isn't just Gaza, isn't just Rafah, isn't just one of these things or another. So is it that Israel continuously destroys all medical facilities in a given region and then moves on to the next one and destroys all the medical facilities there? Because I thought for sure we had reported that all of the hospitals had been destroyed, but here it is happening anyway. So evidently, if there are any remaining medical facilities, that Israel is going after, then they just attack them anyway, which is, again, against the Geneva Conventions, especially if you're targeting journalists. Well, not even especially. Killing journalists is against the Geneva Conventions. Attacking hospitals is against the Geneva Conventions. And no amount of justification changes that fact.
Hospital in Han Yunis. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says amongst those killed were 5 journalists, including a freelancer from the Associated Press and a cameraman who had worked for Reuters.
When and where is it going to end? Are we going to let the Israel Defense Forces continue the repeated killing of journalists?
I mean, that is the fucking question. Because it's been over 200 journalists killed at this point. So when's enough enough? When is the line crossed? That's what we would all like to fucking know.
International law, there are guarantees that should be granted to journalists covering conflicts, and none of that seems to be applying. So we need to be very clear about the fact that none of the journalists that are allegedly terrorists are terrorists. They are professional journalists working for legacy professional media, like, for example, Reuters or, for example, AP.
These latest horrific killings highlight
where the fuck do they get away with calling a journalist a terrorist and then issuing the strike? Like, at that point, then, I may as well become president of the United States, label all of my political enemies terrorists, and then just kill them. I mean, granted, we're only a few steps away from that happening here in America, but it's what Israel is doing in Palestine. So, like, That's not legal. You can't just be like, yep, arbitrarily we're going to call that person a terrorist, either after the fact or as justification to attack them. And again, these are not things that normal countries do or normal leadership does, let alone in self-defense, let alone as a democracy.
Risks that medical personnel and journalists face as they carry out their vital work amidst this brutal conflict. The Secretary General recalls that civilians...
Why does nobody call it the genocide that it is? It's not a conflict. A conflict requires two sides. And if you think an armed military that's a nuclear power versus a literally starving population is two sides, let alone a balanced side, an equal side, you are a fucking sociopath.
Including medical personnel and journalists must be respected and protected at all times. He calls for a prompt, impartial investigation into these killings. He reiterates that medical personnel and journalists must be able to perform their essential duties without interference, without intimidation, and without harm, and in full accordance with international humanitarian law.
Well, I'm not happy about it. I don't want to see it. At the same time, we have to end that whole nightmare. I'm the one that got the hostages out. I got them out, all of them. And I said a long time.
Nah, we're definitely not going to listen to him speak because it's all fucking lies.
Statement, the IDF says it does not target journalists and acts to mitigate harm to uninvolved individuals. Israel says it will conduct an investigation into the incident.
Yeah, we've investigated ourselves and found that we haven't committed any wrongdoing. It's just another series of 220 unfortunate circumstances where journalists have been killed in these actions against Hamas in Palestine. Like, it makes me angry that every day, every Wednesday, every Thursday that we talk about Palestine and Israel, it's always the same song and dance, the same song and dance. And it has been this way since as far back as last year when we were streaming every single day and covering Palestine every single day. It was the same news report with the same Israeli response. We will investigate. This is a horrible tragedy. Who could have seen this coming? Blah, 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 blah. And now Palestinians are literally being starved to death by Israel, and the world is just looking on, pretending like it's not happening. That's insanity, and it's complicity. So again, it's not so much when is enough enough. The question is, why are people stopping at simply protesting? Why is it not enough to demand that your country, that your administrations do something and act accordingly? And why is it that there are not enough fail-safes in place to automatically trigger repercussions if leadership doesn't interfere or intervene in genocide wherever it may happen? Like, that's a huge fucking problem. The fact that there are zero checks and balances or ability to enforce them even at the international level. That is a huge fucking problem that I do intend to address. I couldn't find any videos in English about Mexico's 31 new hospitals. Shocking that the West wouldn't report on that, or at least using the universal language, so to speak. But I wonder if there would be a way to translate. I wonder if there would be a way to translate in real time. I'm guessing not, but... Or I could just learn Spanish fluently, like that. So yeah. There's obviously a little bit more to... Why is this not... Oh, come on. Scroll down. Thank you. There's obviously, more on Israel, but I appreciate you, splitting it up from us. For us, I should say. Although, I think we should go after the same story, or the same major topic, back to back here. So where was this? I wanted to go to Israel trying to put this one right here. So Israel is now trying to grow
you can find me
its influence in the Middle East by building forward operating bases in the Middle East. Which is to say, doing exactly what the United States of America did for the past 20 years during the global war on terror.
Israeli tanks on Syrian territory. Since the fall of the Assad regime, Israeli forces have moved beyond a demilitarized buffer zone and set at least 10 bases and outposts in Syria. Syrians are angry at Israel's violations of the 1974 disengagement agreement with their country. This video was posted...
Again, violating laws, violating treaties at the international level, and nobody's lifting a fucking finger to stop them. That's the question of the fucking century. Like, when historians look back at the 2023-2025 era of history and Israel's genocide of Palestine, historians are going to look at this era and be like, what the fuck? Why was this happening? Why was it allowed to happen?
By Israeli forces after they raided Syrian homes and arrested people, including a child, without proof of what they called an Iranian cell. That's in addition
Right, so now they're terrorizing Syrians as well as committing genocide against Palestinians. They keep extending their fight and their front, and without any roadblocks whatsoever. No hesitation, no accountability, no nothing. Now, obviously, history is going to have the answer as to why Israel got away with it. Is it because they were blackmailing Western powers? Is it because of U.S. complicity? Is it something else that we don't know about? We won't know. We won't know until 20 or 30 years from now. Even if I become president, even as president, I may not have all the answers right away. It might still take a year or 2 or 5 of investigations to even figure out what the fuck Israel had on the rest of the world to allow this shit to happen. Actually, yes, Anna. Evidently, the lands that Israel are attacking and trying to annex are the lands that were talked about in the Bible that were promised to them by God. So, yes, Syria, and parts of Egypt, Iran, parts of Libya, I believe it was, and of course Palestine, were all promised to the Israelites by God.
To Israel's military occupation of the Golan Heights in Syria and attacks on Syrian military facilities, including its navy, air defenses, jets, and heavy weaponry.
Yeah, that's not navy, though. Those are literally fishing boats. Al Jazeera, why are you showing B-roll of fishing boats and talking about the Navy?
Military incursions and occupation are not the only sources of tensions between Syria and Israel. Water security is also a major issue. Syrian media reports say the Israeli military now controls 40% of water sources shared by Syria and Jordan. After taking over the Al-Wahda Dam in the Yarmouk Basin in December, Israeli forces then advanced to the Al-Mantra Dam. But Syria is in a difficult position to respond.
They are literally trying to conquer Syria and are actually succeeding. Well, that's kind of the thing. I don't think Europeans would necessarily stop them if the Bible said that Israel was entitled to Europe. And realistically, Israel won't stop with just the lands that were promised. They will literally continue on until they control whatever it is they feel they should control. Israel is doing what the Third Reich failed to do, which is global conquest, under a biblical justification.
President Ahmed al-Shara's administration has to keep together a fragile unity government and not upset its Western supporters, who it needs to build its economy and gain international recognition as a safe partner.
Okay. Al Jazeera is failing miserably right now in this particular video. First of all, Africa is shrugging its shoulders from the colonization era and the Western powers. So to even report that Syria needs to maintain its connections and relationships with Europe is insane. Secondly, Europe is doing fuck all to stop Israel from annexing Syria. So all of these connections and relationships that was just mentioned about Syria needing to maintain this fragile whatever is clearly a crock of shit. Because if those relationships actually mattered to maintain Syrian sovereignty, then Israel wouldn't be violating Syrian fucking sovereignty. This is ridiculous. Why is Al Jazeera parroting imperialist indoctrination, like imperialist propaganda? This is insane.
The Trump administration has lifted crippling sanctions on the country, and many believe the Syrian government has to do its part by improving ties with Israel as a quid pro quo.
Abraham Accords were announced at a big glamorous agreement during Trump 1 presidency. Not much of it has fulfilled its promises.
So, right, because it's the Trump. Trump doesn't give a shit. Nor is he negotiating in good faith for Syria anyway. Jesus.
We could witness a signing ceremony in Washington, but that really doesn't mean much on the ground. It will take institutions, it will take a lot of time to settle the real issues on the ground, which is occupied territories.
3 days ago.
But even if there is an understanding on the buffer zone and Israel respects Syrian sovereignty, the Shura administration is likely to have great difficulty selling it to many hardline factions and a population that largely opposes Zionism.
As it should.
A part of Syrian society, and their struggles and suffering in Gaza resonate with Syrians.
As it should.
There are other regional and international considerations.
Look, there's Putin. You have the Russian president picture on a goddamn bridge because Russia is helping Syria. Once again, this is all a Western versus Russia proxy war that Israel is pushing forward. Again, that's the real good question. What the actual fuck does Israel have on every single Western government? Because Russia isn't bowing to Israel. China isn't bowing to Israel. Africa ain't. Latin America ain't. The Middle East sure as fuck isn't. So, like, what does the state of Israel have on Europe, America, and Canada? What do they actually have on all of these countries? Because whatever it is has to be so ridiculously damning that each of these countries would be willing to sacrifice their own credibility on the world stage and risk civil unrest in order to placate Israel. Meaning, Israel controls and influences the entire Western world. How and why? That's the fucking question. And Australia. Yeah, I keep forgetting that Australia is counted as part of the Western world. Hello, Apolitical. You're joining us right as I'm about to crash out, I guess is what the kids call it nowadays. We're really trying to figure out what is it that Israel has. Because if it's the kiddie porn, which isn't to be dismissive, if Israel truly has damning evidence that world leaders in all of Western society were on the Epstein Island, if that's the evidence, then why would you allow a genocide to occur just so that you don't go to prison for your pedophilic actions? I cannot imagine that being a pedophile and the ramifications and repercussions of that would be enough to sway these people to allow genocide to occur and invasion of foreign countries. It has to be something else. It has to be. Because if it really is the fear of the repercussions of being outed as a pedophile, well, buddy, a guillotine is one size fits only, and you better hope there aren't at least 37 other versions of me in Europe, Australia, Canada, and whatever, ready to rise to power within the next 4 years and shove your head through one. Because we'll fucking do it on principle alone. So I'm really not understanding what kind of dirt could a foreign power have on you as a world leader or even at the federal level, right? Because there's prime ministers, congresspeople, senators that are all in cahoots in collaboration with Israel, right? Who have these APAC meetings, trips to go to Israel, right? It has to be a cult. Like, it literally has to be a cult. Like, everybody has to be drinking the same fucking Kool-Aid. Because there's no fucking way it's just your standard blackmail. Because at a certain point, blackmail, it's like, all right, fine. My wife will divorce me, my kids will hate me, and I'll go to prison. But I can't stand for genocide. Like, what? No. Like, this, no amount of prison time is scarier than being complicit to genocide. Like, no. Because once that gets revealed, my head is going, forget prison. Prison, I'm still alive. My head's going through a guillotine if it's revealed that I have allowed a genocide to happen. So yeah, I'm really, I am speculating. 8/27/2025 at 7:22 p.m. Eastern, that Israel and Zionism is actually a giant fucking cult, and everybody in power, currently, as of right now, are a part of that cult. And that cult is not just a cult of powerful people, but believers, right? Because powerful people uniting to work together, that's any epic in history, right? But usually, cult members are the victims of the cult leader. The cult leader who is just trying to sleep with their wives, get them to kill each other, themselves, for Jesus. And it's usually only the cult leader and all of their followers that believe in the crazy shit. But in order to truly devastate the global economy and international relations while committing genocide has to be zealotry. There is no other explanation other than zealotry, that would make any sort of sense. No amount of blackmail or bribes would convince people to go along with genocide and just sacrificing at scale your international credibility. Because, okay, fine, Trump is a narcissistic piece of shit, but the other 535 members of Congress shouldn't be. Certainly not at the same level. And then it's, okay, fine, let's just say America is the entire piece of shit. The exact piece of shit that we think that it is. Full of greedy, corrupt, self-serving pieces of shit. Right? Let's just say that's true for America. The odds of that being true for every European country as well doesn't make sense. And Canada and Australia. That just doesn't make sense. That the odds of that being true are astronomical. Which means the only other reasonable explanation is a collaborative agreement which stems from a shared ideology, in this case Zionism, which is a cult-like belief that the second coming of Christ is upon us and we must destroy this world and sacrifice the innocent in order to bring it about. That's the only possible explanation that I can conceivably think of that would explain why all of these countries, all of these federal level leaders, all of these business leaders, all of these international community members, all of these extremely influential leaders are all on board with not interfering with what Israel is doing. Oh, sure, fine. Now it's okay to condemn it, sort of, with words, but not actions. Notice how there hasn't been a single sanction Okay, fine. Spain isn't sending weapons, and Ireland isn't sending weapons, and Scotland isn't sending weapons, and Canada isn't sending weapons. Okay, well, Germany, France, and America still are, and that's the lion's share of weapons that Israel is getting. So until those three stop, everything else is performative. Which is the point. You're allowed to give a show, but you're not allowed to actually interfere. And that is what we've been seeing. And the only countries willing to actually interfere are too, quote-unquote, weak or poor to make any sort of difference. And China and Russia are apparently unwilling to commit. So the only possible explanation is that Zionism is an international cult of some of the most influential people on earth conspiring to bring about the end times. Unfortunately for them, that means a messianic figure is going to arise. And here, let's just game this one out. Okay. The last time a Messiah walked earth, it was Muhammad, according to Muslims from the Quran. But they don't view him as a deity. They view him as a prophet, sharing the word of God. But the last messianic figure that was also deific was Jesus Christ, approximately 2,025 years ago, according to Christianity and Catholicism. Literally the Son of God, literally a mythical being, right? And that is what Zionism is predicated upon. A Jesus figure, not a prophet, an actual coming of God, a deity walking the earth again. Now, according to the Bible, the Torah, the Old Testament, God created the heavens and the earth, blah, 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 and then wiped out everything. And then spitefully destroyed random cities because they weren't, living a godly way. So, even in their own texts, divine powers have been brutal and violent. Enter Yeshua, the New Testament, who gave the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount. And he talked a good game about treat everybody equal, pluck out your eyes if they cause you to sin, so on and so forth, right? But he is risen, water into wine, healing the blind, curing the sick, so on and so forth, right? Now, the second coming of Christ, or a messianic figure that is able to do, for lack of a better words, supernatural, superpowered things. We have God, who has destroyed everything, Jesus, who died for our sins, resurrected, and then fucked off again. Do you honestly think a figure from that mythology, from that canon, arising from death, destruction, war, famine, genocide, slaughter, and more, is going to be on the side of the person that was committing the wrongs? Again, God wiped out all of humanity according to the Zionists, the Christians, and the Jewish people, right? God wiped humanity out for being bastards. That was literally what God did. Yahweh, Jehovah, did that. Allah did that. God wiped out humanity for being assholes. Okay? I need to make that very clear. So, the second coming of Christ is going to be ushered in by humanity being egregious assholes. And every time humanity has challenged God by being assholes or denying him from a position of power, i.e. Pharaoh, poor bastard, they faced plagues, biblical plagues, locusts, frogs, death of the firstborn, fire, floods, the whole fucking 9 yards. Okay? This is not a God that views death, destruction, genocide, and immorality as a good thing. This is a vengeful and vindictive God who will smite you for doing horrible, horrible, horrible things to his creation. Capital H underlined. So how do they think this is going to go? All right, Israel, the chosen people, committing genocide, against the Palestinians, like it was done in the Old Testament when they were trying to become the tribe to begin with. God wanted it then. Surely he wants it now. Okay. So we've wiped out and committed the genocide. And now we're committing the genocide against all these other countries. People are starving. People are suffering globally. Disease, famine, starvation, poverty, fascism rising up, brutal crackdowns, godlessness, lawlessness arising. The figure that arises from the ashes and the flames of that scenario in God's name is not going to look at Trump and Israel and the leaders of Europe and Australia and Canada and be like, "Dem's my people right there. Let's go. Let's fuck up them poor people. Let's go fuck up all the brown folk. Yeah, let's go fuck up and genocide some more people. Let's go God into his out." No, that's not how that's gonna go. That figure is gonna go around with an actual lightsaber, a sword of fire, because this would immediately ignite things. So it could very well have been a real lightsaber. A flaming sword doesn't have to necessarily be flammen, like you would think. It could be a laser sword that burned things on contact, which would make a fuckload more sense. So you have Darth fucking Vader arising from the ashes of genocide, famine, and war, fascism across the entire globe, and they're going to fucking lop off heads using the Force and a goddamn lightsaber, and probably have really fucking awesome wings as they do it, and a Force halo, which we don't even know what that might do. That person, that being, is not going to be on the side of Trump or any world leader. Not even a little bit. Not even if I could make sure that this was just the space of an atom. Which, according to science, if you touch your fingers together, that connection isn't actual atoms touching. It's the electrical forces between them, and at that point, it might actually be atoms coming close together. Whatever. My point here is, Zionism is ushering in the end times, Revelations, right? To have a second godlike figure arise, and they're gonna unleash Darth fucking Vader, except he never went to the dark side. He's just about that life. So, whatever they're fucking doing, and whatever they think they're doing, is going to brutally, horrifically blow up in their face. We're gonna find it hilarious. Go, Anakin, go! Go, Anakin, go, Anakin, go, Anakin, go! That's gonna be me. Get him with the left, get him with the right. Right? We're gonna be like, swing, bada, 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 hey, swing. But everyone from Israel all the way down is going to be brutally, brutally, brutally murdered. Or there's just going to be a natural disaster, like the comet of aliens that's coming our way. Whatever. There is no scenario in which the God of the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, or Quran, right? There is no fucking way that guy is going to be on the side of the oppressor. That's not going to happen. So we are living in the end times with government leaders who are in a death cult, who want to bring about the end times by being the biggest, brutalist, violent motherfuckers that they can be, in the hopes that a divine being arrives to usher them into heaven. But what's going to happen instead is they're going to be, what do they call it? Raptured. Oh, they're going to be raptured, all right. Because if you do this, and this, and this, your soul will in fact be struck from your body. And it may rise up, but guess where it's not going? It's not going to heaven, folks, because you's a bastard. So, all I'm saying All I'm saying is, everybody who's shouting for the rapture, like, yeah, the Bible, yeah, Israel, yeah, Zion, they're gonna get raptured, all right. But they're not gonna go to the good place. Not even the good place that was the comedy that ran several years ago, which was hilarious and a great series, by the way. They're not gonna go to the good place. Spoiler. All right. I think I crashed out a little bit. So, looks like there was a little bit of chat going on. Israel is such a small fake country. Maybe Israel has been infiltrating USA for a long time. Which, no, that is absolutely true. There's also evidence that AIPAC, which sends Congress people, i.e. both the House and the Senate, to Israel for workshops in Israel, for Israel, on behalf of Israel, is clearly foreign influence, right? So that's treason. Thank God the founders thought of, hey, we should clearly define treason as foreign influence, because surely nobody would just betray America after we fought the Revolutionary War. Surely not. And then 100 years later, we have a civil war over slavery, and then 70 years after that, we're at World War I, and then, 50 years later, we're at World War I, 70 years later, we're at World War II. So, I have no idea. Wasn't Epstein, really connected to Israel? Yes, he was very connected to Israel. He was Israeli, a Zionist, the whole 9 yards, and that's kind of the point. Epstein was whoever he was, and either he's dead for realsies, or he's living somewhere in Israel continuing his work. We won't know until we know. But I think that Epstein is just the tip of the iceberg. No, that is clearly the case. Whoever the Zionist Pope is the guy that we really need to worry about. But there's no way of knowing who that person is. Maybe the U.S. wants to keep control in the Middle East with Israel? Wrong. It's the other way around. Israel is the reason why the United States of America has been fucking with the Middle East at all, because the United States doesn't like brown people. America is racist to its policy core. It wants nothing to do with the Middle East. It's Israel that had a problem with the Middle East. The United States of America only ever wanted to worry about Latin America and South America and influencing its hemisphere. But Israel's like, hey, we need to deal with the Middle East so we can do this Zionism thing. And America was like, okay. And that is the first time we started making the Middle East a problem. So yes, we are cucked by Israel. I've never even read a page of the Bible. Well, I have. I've had to study it throughout courses and stuff. The religious people I know are some of the most unholy I know. Exactly. What did I just log into? Me crashing out. This is out of context. This out of context would be funny. Is it funny, Tylo? Is it? It was amazing timing with the flaming sword appearing too. Right. I stand that the flaming sword in the Bible that was being used to guard the Garden of Eden, carried by the angel, was in fact a lightsaber. I stand that one. That is my new canon for the canon Bible. The angels and God are Jedi warriors who have traveled a long distance from a faraway galaxy over a very long time, because it was a long time ago that they made it here. And that's what happened. Yes, that is correct. I like the gun better, to be honest. True, but the gun is not a flaming sword. Wake up, Palpatine is Netanyahu. No, Netanyahu wishes he was Palpatine, because Palpatine was a master manipulator and political mastermind. Just an absolute political genius and a Sith Lord. Of course, authors were writing him, but, maybe this was actually historical references, because apparently information travels throughout the universe and our brain just kind of taps into it. So that might very well, Star Wars might be actual history for all the fuck we know. For all the fuck we know, Star Wars might be canon. Literal, actual history, just in a galaxy far, far away. A very long time ago. Good evening, Tylo. We do like their oil, though, but Venezuela has more oil, so it doesn't make sense. That would be the only reason. Right, no, that's my point. We're only in the Middle East at the behest of Israel. It was definitely a lightsaber in Genesis. Canon approved. Why do I have a red lightsaber? Because I am one with the Force, and the Force is one with me, and I have a lot of pent-up rage, if you haven't noticed. So, red. And I would not gently use the Force if I had the actual ability to use the Force. I would use the Force to address these issues directly. Which is why I know for a fact I am not the messianic figure, as sad as it may be, because I do not have a real lightsaber, for one, and for two, I don't have Force abilities, which means I can't be the Messiah. The genocide is Order 66. Yeah, well, you know. The former Pope, Pope Benedict, the German one, looks just like Palpatine. He really did. He really did. It was pretty uncanny how, and he wasn't very cash money with social like beliefs. Like he was very much so gays are bad and all this other shit. So we got really lucky with the previous Pope after Benedict, which was Francis, right? I don't know how I've managed to already forget his name, but so anywho, I think that covers the discourse on Israeli Zionism and how that actually ties into the Force. Is this going to let me switch? All right. Let's switch gears.
En 5 años las rentas han subido 47%.
Oh, it's a good thing we found this in English.
Eso es algo violento para la población local.
Residents of Mexico City have been protesting against gentrification, some of them saying an influx of U.S. citizens is to blame.
Nosotros nos estamos debatiendo entre pagar la luz, pagar el agua o comer.
More than 1.6 million U.S. citizens reside in Mexico, according to the U.S. State Department. The high cost of living in the U.S. is said to be the catalyst that's pushed roughly 11,000 Americans to migrate to Mexico just last year.
Wow.
Protesters are also upset with the government for policies that they say favor wealthier newcomers without considering the communities that have lived in the area.
Principalmente si van a venir a vivir a un país, tienen que contribuir a ese país, ¿no?
Yeah.
La primera y la cuestión más sencilla es la migración legal.
So, even the Mexican government, the Mexican population is like, those damn illegals. Which, here's the thing. Yes, if you move to another country, you should contribute to that country. And personally, I think you should adopt their culture, but in a respectful manner, right? And they should respect that you don't have that culture, right? I'm American. If I moved to France, I would do my best to respect French culture, but they're going to have to respect the fact that I'm an American, right? That doesn't mean that they forgive me. I should be held accountable for when I act American in a place where I should be acting French. I get that. But at the same time, right, it isn't fair if the French government is like, oh, Titi Croissant, we are going to bring these Americans over here, give them cigarettes and baguette, and we're going to let them live a life of luxury. While our own people, they suffer needlessly. We're going to let them continue to suffer, and we're going to make sure that these areas with the Americans are better than where our own Frenchmen live. Enchanté. That's not right. But then again, why aren't these governments trying to make lives better for everybody anyway? Gentrification is only possible in a capitalist society. Otherwise, it's called continuous population improvement. But gentrification, making everything more expensive and property values higher, is a direct result in tying value to access to capital, which is how that whole devaluation thing happens in the first place, or making it impossible to reach. That's the fucking problem. Capitalism. Me getting evil? Well, I never claimed to be good. I might be fighting for the right reasons, but that doesn't necessarily make me good.
Is the leading district.
Because I will shove a bitch's head through a guillotine. And good people don't shove people's heads through guillotines.
24 hours to go for Trump's tariff. U.S. issues notice for additional 25% tariff on India. U.S.
Is this the video where India ignores the shit of them? Oh, here we go. That's what I wanted to listen to. Well, it's not good.
दबाव कितना ही क्यों ना आए, हम झेलने की अपनी ताकत बढ़ाते जाएंगे.
Are we gonna get subtitles or something? Okay. So America tries to tariff India, and the PM says, fuck that, which is fine. German newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung has put out a bombshell report. And all that means is Frankfurter, like the Frankfurt, all around paper. Allgemein is like all encompassing. The newspaper report that U.S. President tried to call him Narendra Modi. Trump reportedly called 4 times but got no response from the leader. Nice! Modi is another motherfucker, but he's not putting up with Trump. Well, you know, and that's the thing. Fascism is on the rise throughout the world, but this piece of shit, our piece of shit fascist wannabe piece of garbage, is the one that's trying to bully the other fascists. And it's kind of crazy because, like, nobody wants a fascist to win, but everybody wants a fascist to lose. And we are definitely rooting for our fascist to lose. And every single time he opens his mouth, he does. So, I guess we'll watch a little bit more of this for Schadenfreude. So the Indian PM reportedly refused to take Trump's calls in recent weeks amid tariff threats. Awesome. Way to be petty. Petty against the petty motherfucker that tariffed you in the first place. Let's go. All right. What's this? Since we're talking about
Described as how 4 million people turn processes into...
Nobody cares.
Cold tariffs.
Tremendous tariffs.
The reciprocal tariff rate.
The tariffs.
April 4th.
Liberation Day.
President Donald Trump unveils his giant...
You know, I'm glad he keeps using all of these super patriotic terms and phrases like Liberation Day, because when we oust him from the White House, or if he dies within the next 6 to 8 months, and we oust whoever takes his place from the White House, that will be the day we dub Liberation Day, and it will be biblical in nature.
Tariffs board, and just like that, the global economy flips. Tariffs are back. They're the hottest topic in every negotiation room. Everyone's scrambling for a deal.
What kind of bootlicking propaganda is this? Because that's not true at all. Nobody was scrambling for a deal. If anything, people were trying to tell him to stop because he's a dumb motherfucker. What the hell? DW News. It's a German broadcast service. Of course Germany would be fueling the propaganda of a fascist. Outstanding.
Tariffs are supposed to protect the economy. But what if they do the opposite? The value of the US dollar is falling. The government is raking in record revenue. Unemployment is going up. So what's really going on? Let's first explain how
well, first of all, the
tariffs
government
work and what
son of a bitch. First of all, the government isn't raking in record revenue. It is extorting more taxes from consumers through tariffs. So this piece of shit better start fucking talking about the real stuff. Yeah, it is supposed to be about how he fucked up. But so far, for the past 43 seconds, he's been dick riding.
To do. When countries import goods, they send money abroad in exchange for products made abroad. To protect local jobs, governments sometimes place tariffs or taxes on imported goods. This makes imports more expensive. With fewer imports, local businesses face less competition. In theory, this should boost local production and keep more money in the country. That's the idea.
Okay. He needs to start fucking talking soon, because this is, right now, we're talking about the very evidence of how the economics of everything is a scam. Just because you are charging a tariff to a foreign good doesn't automatically impact domestic product if domestic product cannot exceed or expand because of its own problems. This entire concept, this entire economic system is lies and wishful thinking. The whole world is in shock by Trump's genius trading tactics. Is that the title? It's what it sounds like.
Tariffs mean fewer imports and a stronger local economy. But in practice, things look different. Imports continue to flow in, and the value of the US dollar has kept falling against almost every other currency. The US dollar index started 2025 at 129 points and fell to 120 by June. In 2024, the value had increased, while 2023 remained relatively stable. The drop in 2025 is the steepest first-half drop since the early 1970s. So how did this happen?
At the first glance, tariffs should strengthen the currency, and the simple reason is if you do that from a starting point, that should create an excess demand for your products, right? We've seen instead the dollar depreciating. What can explain that? I think the number one explanation is definitely a loss of confidence in U.S. economic policy. A dollar depreciation is basically a way to put all U.S. assets on sale at once, right, by making them cheaper in foreign currency terms. And the reason that assets need to go on sale is because people are less excited about buying U.S. financial assets in this environment.
Tariffs.
Which means, and we can probably skip the rest of this video now, because they said what's the problem. All this policy did is make the entire world look at America and be like, no. Absolutely fucking not. That, and we devalued the entire value of the dollar by what, 9 points? It was 129 to a little over 120. So like almost 10% devaluation of the dollar compared to international currencies. On top of the fact that now everything's more expensive for us because the tariff, the 35% tariff or the 50% or the 25 or the 10% tariff is a fee that we pay. Because these businesses aren't going to pay them. They are going to pass on the cost to the consumer. Because under capitalism, capital can never be squandered, can never be lost by those who hold it. Only the consumer can lose capital. We can only take capital. So this entire policy makes no fucking sense on paper, let alone in practice, which we are seeing. Nose. Where are the ads? We already got through them, I think. TBH, I think the general opinion here that USA is being annoying. True. And that's another problem, right? You can tariff the world, but you can't make them buy your shit because they think you're an asshole. You can't make them stop thinking you're an asshole if you continue to be an asshole. So right now, all of U.S. trade policy hinges on the fact that this administration is universally reviled. And everybody who was making money under this administration is starting to lose money, which is why these policies are now being rolled back. Hey, you dumb motherfucker, we thought that this was a good idea to bully other countries because that's what we do in America. We bully other companies. We bully our subordinates. We bully the competition, and then we make more money. Well, it doesn't work like that on the international stage. It never has, and it never will. Because other countries have a duty to their people. Unless you're Israel. Then you have a duty to Israel first. But all of which is to say that all of these economic policies are beginning to shift because of how absolutely devastating they've been. Even if the goal is to push forth fascism in all of these countries doesn't do you any good if the people can't afford to spend money, because again, capitalism only thrives on consumerism. And if people can't consume, guess what happens? You start to learn a little bit about physics and the futility of currency. If you control and possess all of the currency, then guess what you cannot do? Get more of it. And if you can't get more of it, all of that currency that you already possess has to start getting redistributed. But you can't, because people are still unable to give out their currency. The medium of exchange breaks down, and economies and businesses and governments begin to collapse, which we've already begun to see in America. So, let's hear a little bit more.
Are also supposed to promote local business growth if there are fewer imports. But the U.S. is still heavily importing goods. In 2024,
because U.S. manufacturing doesn't exist anymore.
Tariffs brought the U.S. nearly $50 billion in revenue in the first half of the year. In 2025, the number doubled to $100 billion. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the number is expected to exceed $300 billion by the end of 2025. So, are only Americans benefiting?
No, I would say quite to the contrary. We're the ones who are suffering from this trade war. It's true, as you point out, that you get some revenue, but it's a huge tax increase. You get revenue from any tax increase, and usually presidents don't go on the news and say, hey, I raised your tax a bunch. We should all be really happy. But this is exactly what's happening now. Is consumers and U.S. businesses are.
It only took 3 minutes and about 25 seconds for her to say the damn quiet part out loud. Holy shit.
This tax increase.
Let's hear it again.
Consumers and U.S. businesses are paying this tax. This is exactly what's happening now, is consumers and U.S. businesses are paying this tax. This is exactly what's happening now, is consumers and U.S. businesses are paying this tax increase.
And there it is, folks, from the expert, which I don't know what her name is. Is it going to give her the... Kimberly Klausing, which is an economist and professor of tax law and policy at UCLA School of Law. So the professor herself said, we're the ones paying for it, so that $100 billion of revenue is our fucking money. Is a country ever even an ally of the U.S.? I don't think so, but you guys probably know better. Feels like a really self-centered country, but I guess all allies are for personal benefit. So to put it simply, you are correct. America has been a very narcissistic country, the only superpower in the world for so long until, China and Russia decided to, invest in their economies and build a fuck ton of nuclear weapons. But America has never been a good friend, a good diplomatic or even trade ally. It's always been unilateral, and it's always been to the benefit, the gross benefit of the United States of America and her interests. That will change under my administration, but we have some time, unfortunately, until that happens.
If you're here in the area and are looking for a solution to
talking about in the last couple of videos, countries around the world are halting mail and business with Trump USA. That's sort of today's video, and I want to show you a perspective from other countries. So let's just jump right in.
Online retailers right around the world are in chaos as they try to get their heads around another decision by the Trump administration. The US president is suspending a long-running tax exemption for global retailers. Until now, goods going into the States worth $800 or less weren't being taxed. This so-called de minimis exemption is being axed on August 29. Products will now get the tariff associated with their country of origin or a duty that's ranging from $80 to $200.
Jesus Christ.
While the end of this tax exemption...
Okay, do you realize what she just said? She basically said that you're going to be paying an import tax of $80 to $200 on most things coming from other countries. That's fucking disgusting. Premium animation. Yes. Just absolute fucking.
Is forcing some.
And it's worth mentioning that the $80 to $200 would be per item, I guess, and it could add up very, very quickly, which effectively people just aren't going to order stuff, or things, could be en route, they arrive, hey, you got to pay a bunch of money that people didn't, plan on, and you're like, what the heck is this? This is sort of the Trump world that we're in. It's just pure chaos.
Retailers here in Australia to reconsider their investment in the United States market. One Brisbane-based brand, Apero, has just made the difficult decision to halt shipping to the United States. Its co-founder, Laz Smith, says that they've been struggling to get information about how these tariffs are going to be applied, including from Australia Post, which they use for postage to the States.
And so this is, I just want to give you an example. This is from Australia. They're saying, some companies are halting shipping, and then also you have.
We all use Amazon, Walmart, Target, whatever. We try and boycott, but the reality is, you have to shop somewhere to get food and stuff in America, right? And whether it's Meijer, Target, Kroger, whatever shop you go to, it's whatever's close and affordable to you in your area. You do not have the choice. And sometimes it's more convenient to do the online orders because 15% off, bi-weekly, bi-monthly, whatever. That's just the world that we live in America. The best you can do with consumerism is at least make sure it's not going to Israel. That's about the best you can do, right? So if you're getting food, snacks, clothing, whatever, tissue paper, toilet paper for crying out loud, and you think it's American, Charmin Ultra, right? That's got to be American. But what if it's actually made in China and imported? Because again, Chinese manufacturing dominates all global manufacturing. How much shit is actually made in America? Because I keep picking things up. I don't believe this hand sanitizer is. It is manufactured. Well, okay, it's manufactured for Unilever. It's manufactured by Guangzhou Zhuili Cosmetic Company in China. And that's hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer is very important in this country. Very important in this country. Every country, for that matter. And this is made, and this is Suave. Which, I'm not even certain that Suave. Well, what country of origin is Suave? U.S. Well, nope, hold on, that was square. Hold on. America. Okay, so still America. Yeah, an American brand. Okay, it's an American brand that's manufactured in China, meaning this is an American company making American products in China, and because of this, this bottle of lotion might be $5, for a pack of 12. But according to this, it might be $85 because of import taxes. Do you understand how sociopathic that is? That is insane. I find the monotone voice of the news speakers hard to follow. Yeah, especially since they're just issuing and spewing propaganda as well. I better start making homemade gifts for Leia for Christmas. Yeah, you better make a homemade PlayStation and freaking Barbie Quest online. What? Yeah, kids aren't gonna have toys anymore. That's for goddamn certain. I never see a made in USA tag ever, and that's even in a foreign country. I don't see it. I don't even think my cool little pen thing is. Made in the USA. Of course, it doesn't say where it was made anyway. But presumably also made in China. But yeah, it's actually, I'd be shocked if this book was in America. Published by New American. Published. Printing. Okay. Printed in the United States. Okay. 1984. This book, at least. This one, at the very least, was, in fact, made in America. A book that is being banned in many conservative school districts was at least made in America. We're fucking cooked. We are fucking cooked. Well, according to Wikipedia, the name is French, not Spanish, but you know, that's neither here nor there. But suffice to say, yeah, this is going to get insanely expensive to live, and people are going to, if maybe that's finally the breaking point of people getting fed up with this administration, because most of our food, folks, is imported. Yeah, those fruits, definitely not in America. And we're talking oranges and bananas. Nowhere in America can you, well, I guess you could grow oranges in Florida. Bananas, you sure as shit cannot. That lemons, limes, not going to happen. Hey, guess where avocados come from? Not America. Not the United States of America. Nope, those come from Mexico. And they're the world's largest exporter. So all that guacamole, not going to happen. Coffee? Ha! You think a $5 cup of coffee at Starbucks is expensive? Or a $3 cup of coffee at Tim Hortons is expensive? Buddy, if a bag of coffee beans is about to start off with an 8 in front of it, 80 plus, your coffee is going to double or triple in cost. Like that's not that isn't even hyperbole. So anyway, fucking cooked.
Various couriers in various countries also halting shipping. So that's Australia. Let's listen to some of India.
About India Post, because it's temporarily suspending postal services to the United States. The move comes after the US administration's executive order, which ends the duty-free exemption for goods valued up to $800.
So again, this is the global trade war. This just hit our news here in Korea because my wife and I are like, I wonder if it's affecting us. And literally it is. Korea Post suspends most US-bound packages as tariff rise. This is our news here in Korea. It just came out today.
다음 주부터 우체국이 미국으로 보내는 소포와 특급 우편 서비스를 중단합니다. 이 미국의 관세 정책이 소포나
And then I can translate it, but you can also see it literally. It says domestic international mail parcels.
Yeah, we can see it, buddy.
In our news,
we can fucking see it. Domestic parcels, internet. What's that? What's that script at the very bottom? We can't see that. Yeah, sure. I know that is a Korean language. I know for a fact that is Korean. I also know the big ass sign there with the notepad on it is Korean. The fuck?
This is in Korea. I just want to show you guys that we're talking about it too. We're talking about the dates. You can see we're talking about, okay, so how can we send stuff to the USA? $800 or less. These are the different kinds of things. It's like the whole thing is crazy, and I just wanted to show you it's not just like happening to one country. Trump's not waging trade war against just one country. It's multiple countries all at the same time. And then like when you watch news from around the world, it's insane. Like the whole thing's insane. So like, okay, if you want to send from Korea to the USA, you can use EMS, but there's different types of EMS. And then they're talking about how when you send stuff internationally, then each sort of group will have a partnership with another. Here they're using the example of, say, like a UPS partnership. And then they were talking about weight, what would cost more, what would cost less. I mean, it gets to be quite complicated, but the problem is that there's not much clarity coming.
All I'm saying is I see a 4, a 9, and a 5 versus a 6, a 3, and a 7. Okay? I don't know what the Korean currency is called. Nope, I don't want to even guess. I don't want to even say because I'm going to be wrong. And then I'm going to be racist on top of that. So, let's just... It says a 28% increase. I'm going to believe that to be true. 637 divided by 495 is 28%. Yes, that is a 28% increase. So, like, I don't know where the $80 is coming in from, but still, even if that's just the simple increase of 28%, that still means $5 plus 28% is at least $1.50. So, good luck if all of our shit, all of our food, all of our coffee, all of our goods is going to go up by 30%. Minimum. Like, no fucking way. There is no fucking way.
From the USA, and I'm just showing you, like, in Korea, there's just from on the ground perspective, like, how do we deal with this? So they're saying here, do we send something by EMS? Do we send something by EMS premium? There's a difference in prices depending on the weight of said thing. And then they were talking about, you know, if you're a parent, that's why they kind of have the graphic of a mom, you know, mom sending a mom package to USA if your son or daughter is studying in USA.
On August 27th,
there's
I told viewers that the road to
interrupting,
artificial general intelligence
ad.
Trying not to get upset, but I want to understand that, like, these are affecting real people. I know sometimes you might feel disconnected from what's happening with the Trump stuff because yes, it's clowny and crazy, but like it really affects real people. So here's another example of on Australia. So the example here I'm giving you in Korea is like, hey, someone just wants to send their package, you know, to their kid for whatever there is over, you know, going on. Here's another one from Australia. Listen to this.
It's tough to make a decision such as stopping to make sales in that particular market, especially when it represents a third of your overall revenue. But in the end, I don't think it's worth the risk of just saying we're going to ship things and hope this is going to work and whatever. I think that our reputational damage would far outweigh the lack of revenue we may see in the short term.
Right.
And that's a thing, by the way. There's an actual term for it, but it slipped as soon as I switched to this screen. Hopefully it comes back to me. But reputational damage to a company is something that all companies face every single time they raise the price or get rid of a service. There is a direct correlation to a point of no return. So I guess it would be something like this. Max services, lowest prices, right? And as you increase prices and reduce services, there is a converging point where once they meet, they will lose permanent trust in the consumer base and it will never be regained. And it's different for everything, right? Hand sanitizer, you could maybe triple the price of it and make it be 90% effective instead of 99% effective. But then when you start dropping to 89.9% and quadrupling the price, people are never going to buy your product again. Even if you brought it back to 99.9% and $5, because you have lost the trust of the brand. And that's why a lot of these companies that actually do go bankrupt outside of being, you know, bought and sold and scrapped and stripped for parts is because they overreached their brand, their promises. And it happens all the fucking time. Do I have a good example off the top of my head? Blockbuster was actually one of them. They also failed to adapt commercially. Yahoo was a dominant figure in the search engine space and email space, and now nobody has a Yahoo email anymore. Because people also stopped trusting them. Even though Yahoo is perfectly viable as an email or as a search engine, people stopped trusting them because Google started doing better. They didn't improve. They demanded more and more and more. And then, fuck it. Same thing with MySpace. Same thing with a lot of different social media things. Why a lot of people left Twitter. Now, and it's becoming the cesspool for degeneracy, right? There are all sorts of companies out there that have lost public support and trust and no longer exist. And it is because of that. Hold up. Where was it? Okay, houses too. The average price of a house here are insane. The Dutch housing market has reached unprecedented heights in 2025. Average property price is now sitting at 488,000 euros, which is crazy because that's about the average cost of a house in America. Thank you, private equity buying up residential property to turn it into rental properties and driving up the cost of value of homes to fuck everyone else. And it's around 500,000 because I think the euro is stronger again. I read a few days ago that in order to afford a house, most people in the U.S. need to make over 110K a year, and the average U.S. income is about 48K, which isn't even accurate, because the average income that they always spout, which is like even that 48K number, if you take away the 1,000 top earners, it goes to like 38K. So if you take away the 1,000 richest people in America, the average income, the average median income becomes 38K. Otherwise, if you include the 1,000 highest earners in America, it's like 68K or 58K or something. I hate when they try to shrink the products and sell it for the same price. Once again, capitalism, baby. They have a name for that, shrinkflation. I got blocked and banned from Twitter by Elon himself. Get him, girl. $568,000. Yeah, that's pretty fucking wild. But, I mean, this is my problem with capitalism. Why is private residential property being allowed to be purchased by private capital in the first place? Second of all, why are we not regulating corporations from price gouging, which is supposed to be a crime? So wouldn't shrinkflation be price gouging? Less product, more money? That's literally price gouging. Well, no, price gouging is taking whatever it is and raising the prices because of, you know, whatever other reason. No, motherfucker. You were charging $5 for 10 ounces and now you're charging $5 for 8 ounces. And putting it in the same size bottle. Hence why we have the need for a very specific set of resistance called boycotting. We need to boycott by exercising our First Amendment rights. We need to boycott these companies that are raising their prices, that are engaging in shrinkflation, that are feeding us chemicals, that are pushing the tariffs onto the consumer, and that are buying private property, residential property, to turn it over into rental property against the civilian population. Also, companies that continue to stagnate wages, even though companies make hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of profit off of each employee, not giving any sort of bonuses or pay raises while bragging about quarterly profits, we need to start holding them accountable through our pocketbooks while we still have pocketbooks to take advantage of. So, however we choose to skin this particular cat, whether it's boycotting, whether it's BDS, whether it's general strikes, whether it's unionization, whether it's, you know, shopping elsewhere. I mean, boycotting is specifically not buying buying that particular product, but boycotting is also, you know, or could be construed as, all right, we won't go to Target, we'll go to Kroger instead, or Aldi's, right? So there are many different ways to go about changing the problems that we have in our country, especially from an industrial standpoint. It doesn't always have to be, you know, going on protests, right? It could be elections. It could be politics. It could also be general strikes. It could be boycotts. It could be any number of things. People who are supposed to regulate it love the money of the people they are supposed to be regulating. I was not thinking of boycotting when you got that prop. Boycotting is a gift. I don't know what this prop to me is boycotting. Yep. It's a prop that serves a very distinct. You can take on the competition quite effectively, right? You can bear your arms as a pocketbook, as your vote, as your sign to protest against corruption and cruelty in the in government and industry. Just saying. I really like this guy, by the way. This is a good creator. He has a good amount of talking about his opinion, but also providing context from, news sources. Oh.
So, in Australia, they're just like...
Yeah, but in the Netherlands, if you have a prop that looks like an M4 with a mount, with a mount sight, that's, you don't have the guaranteed right to bear arms, so the prop could be very scary to people. But in America, you could get this at a 7-Eleven in Texas or Arkansas.
We're just halting shipping right now because I don't want to piss off my customers. That's basically what it boils down to. And I like how he talks about, reputation. And I think what's so sad about this whole Trumpy stuff is you get so used to just, frankly, dumb discussion in USA with Trump. I don't know how to put it. Like, the language is dumb. He says stupid stuff all the time. And you get kind of normalized to that. But when you get...
That's actually the biggest threat of Trumpism, is that we have... When was the last time you saw the news talk about the Epstein files? When was the last time you saw the news talk about his deranged behavior? When was the last time you heard the news talk about Elon Musk and his Roman salute, his act of just throwing his heart to the crowd, right? His deranged behavior is being normalized by the media, whose fucking job is to hold that piece of shit accountable. And they're not.
Guys, when you watch stuff around the world or intelligent people in the USA, because they do exist. I want to make that clear. It's not that not everyone is dumb in the USA. No, lots of intelligent people in the USA, but Trump is really dragging down sort of the discussion and the dialogue, and it's frustrating to no end.
Very frustrating.
But I want to show you, though, around the world, like, everyone has to deal with this Trumpy problem. This is in Canada.
I think that American end users are going to feel it, and I think small businesses in Canada are going to feel it.
Well, I don't know about tons. Because you would think if there were that many of us... Nope, that's true. That's pretty accurate. Because a bunch of smart people getting together end up being too smart to work together. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they wouldn't be willing to work together. They're just going to be too busy focusing on what that particular solution is going to look like, because there's so many ideas flowing. They're like, oh, wait, that is a good idea. We should think about that. It's like, that's not a great idea. No, you're right. But what if we did this? So smart people are actually going to be discussing the problem and solutions to the problem, but will never come to an agreement because there will constantly be a flow of ideas. That's the problem with smart people. Smart people that are actually smart are willing to work with other smart people and come up with solutions to problems and have discussions. Sorry. Not a left-handed prop, because if you were to hold it like this, you would get hit. Like it would burn your forearm. Anyway. But it's in the way. Anyway, the problem, though, is that left-leaning organizers don't talk about solutions to problems. They talk about ways to find problems in the solutions and also ways to avoid working together, because only their organization and their ideology has the right to exist and is the only one that'll actually save us.
Earlier this month, the U.S. government announced the end of the de minimis threshold, which is an exemption for duties on goods shipped to the U.S. valued under $800. Etsy has announced it won't print Canada.
By the way, a vast majority of things, right? Even the PlayStation example that I gave is $600. A PlayStation 5 is $600, which means it wouldn't fall under the de minimis exemption, right? Or before it would have, I mean. But now, without it, you're going to be paying literally $700, $800, maybe even $900 for the same fucking PlayStation. That came from the same goddamn place.
Post shipping labels for orders to the U.S. because the carrier can't process tariffs. Sellers will need to ship through other companies and will need to either raise prices or absorb the cost of the tariffs.
They have to use the bigger carriers. They cost more to ship. They're going to charge us brokerage fees, and then they're going to charge us the tariffs. So absorbing all of that is financially undoable.
And I think this is all part of Trump's plan. The way they're setting up the rules is it's really going to affect small businesses. And we've kind of known this,
So, never got why I always heard the U.S. high school was super easy while USA has so many top universities. That's like boycotting yourself if you don't have a long-term plan. Yeah, welcome to America. American high school is a joke, and then universities have become a joke as well. But it's even worse than that because evidently this generation of student is illiterate. They can pass tests apparently, but they're functionally illiterate, and it's pretty fucking disturbing. You also have the conservatives who go out of their way to undermine curriculum to add Christianity or patriotism and whitewashing history. So, and underfunding schools on top of all that. So, no, education in America has definitely set us back 1, 2, maybe even 3 generations. Now, to his point, the big brain plan of the tariffs is, of course, to ensure that small businesses in America can benefit from all of the competition that they're no longer going to experience from Canada and overseas. But the reality is America doesn't have manufacturing in the first place. And these companies like Etsy and all this, that, and the other, even if it is just within the United States, like that's not a big enough market for most of these small businesses that rely on Etsy and international sales. On top of that, you're going to impact the big businesses, the industries. Now you're going to be dealing with brokerages and paying tariffs. That's probably where the $80 and $200 per parcel comes from. Because you're not just paying the tariff, you're also paying the brokerage fees. So all you're doing is consolidating more and more capital into the hands of the big players, meaning you are actively creating conglomerates and monopolies through this tariff system. And it is going to be detrimental to people in the long run.
In USA for a long time, to where it's tough to have a small business. The big, businesses that like the Trumpy kind of stuff try to push you out. You'll see multiple people say, "It's want to hear you guys from business owners." This would be a professor in Arizona. Listen to what she has to say.
In fashion space, we're most kind of concerned about is the small businesses, because they're the ones that have the hardest time reacting to it. They're not as versed with global trade policy, and if the U.S. isn't a huge part of their business, but they're selling some to the U.S., they're likely to lose some customers that they ship here, and the customer's goods get held up because the duty wasn't paid on it, and all of a sudden USPS is contacting that customer saying, hey, you owe a duty, you owe an import fee on this good, and that customer is of course unhappy that they didn't know. So it's challenging for these individual retailers.
And then of course another ad. I think that pretty much covers that video though, that discussion. I think we can move on here a little bit. Looks like we got to cover some more Israel.
We're going to stay in Gaza. And perhaps the first time famine has been declared outside the African continent. The UN-backed IPC has declared a full-blown catastrophic famine in Gaza City. The classification is characterized by, quote, starvation, destitution, and death, with 1 in 3 children acutely malnourished. Unless Israel's near-total blockade on food is lifted, the famine's expected to expand to Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis in coming weeks. Many aid agencies have life-saving aid sitting in warehouses outside Gaza, ready to enter. For more, we go to Gaza City. We're joined by Tess Ingram, spokesperson for UNICEF, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. Tess, thanks so much for being with us. You heard about what happened at Khan Yunis, at Nasser Hospital. Of course, there's so many patients there, children, adults, journalists, doctors, staff. From where you stand, this in the midst of the declaration by the UN that the Gaza Strip is in famine. Can you comment?
The rules of war are clear. Healthcare must be protected, as should journalists and all civilians, including children and humanitarian aid workers. And yet throughout this conflict, we've seen a constant disregard for the rules of war. And I saw it today here in Gaza.
Lady, you are on Democracy Now! Well, actually, has Amy Goodman called it a genocide? Has Amy Goodman herself called it a genocide? Amy Goodman is literally Amy fucking Goodman. She is literally one of the premier, like, journalists in America. Has she said it? She doesn't say consistently if she does. You're on the Good Morning or Democracy Now! Interview. Call it what it is, Tess Ingram, please.
As a city, I went to 3 hospitals, and at every hospital, I was met with rooms full of injured children, children with amputations, with horrific blast injuries, with fractures, with multiple shrapnel wounds and internal injuries. It is among the worst that I've seen. I was shocked by what I witnessed today in the hospitals. And on top of that, of course, we have the crisis of famine. Children with malnutrition at a screening center I was at again today. All but one child that was screened had malnutrition while I was there, and that one child has been receiving treatment from UNICEF and hasn't gotten better over the last 3 weeks. But it is everywhere, Amy. Everywhere we look, children are being disproportionately affected by this horror.
Tell us what the IPC is. It's actually quite a conservative organization within the United Nations. If you can talk about what it means to declare famine.
They are quite conservative. They're a group of independent technical experts. So this group look at data specifically, and they look at it in the context of food insecurity. And they do this all the way around the world, from Somalia to Sudan, South Sudan. And now, of course, they've been watching the situation in Gaza for many, many months now. They actually first warned of the risk of famine in December 2023. And since then, they have been monitoring.
So you're telling me we've known that this was a risk since the beginning of this fucking genocide, and 2 fucking years later, now that it's happening, everybody's like, oh shucks, how could we have possibly fucking known? Oh wow, where were the fucking signs? Are you shitting me?
Monitoring, collecting evidence and data. So for them to make this classification on Friday of a famine in Gaza City and the risk of that spreading and quickly to Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis is a very significant moment. It is a rare moment for the IPC to make such a finding, and it is backed by 50 pages of evidence behind that claim. So we take that very seriously. Of course, we know here on the ground that the situation has been bad for so many months. One girl I spoke to yesterday, Sarah, she's 14 here in Gaza City, and she said to me, famine, of course I know, I've been starving for 5 months now. And I think that is the view of so many people here. But they were relieved that this really well-regarded group has put that on the international stage. And hopefully world leaders will take it and use it as a catalyst to finally do something to try and get more aid to these children.
Fuck. These countries don't need to worry about getting more aid to the children. These countries need to hold Israel accountable for starving the fucking people of Palestine. What the fuck? Why can nobody say this part? Israel is a country of war criminals, like manufacturing genocide and famine. That is evident. There is 50 pages of evidence for this one, hundreds of thousands of pages of evidence for the genocide, and none of it is being used to hold Israel accountable. That's the fucking problem. Jesus Christ. Alright, I'm done with this lady. Tess is fucking trash. Or she is extremely tunnel visioned. You know what? We need Francesca.
I've got to share this. Are you paying?
Shut the fuck up. Nobody cares.
Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied
Can somebody please redeem Francesca Albanese for me?
Palestinian territory. She's joining us live from Tunis. Good to have you with us. What's your reaction to what's been happening?
It's disgraceful. Again, I confirm what we just heard. The journalists should be protected like all civilians, and all the more because they have a special duty to tell what happens on the ground. In the past 21 months, 22 months now, we have seen journalists often being targeted for what they were doing. And the fact of having a total ban on foreign journalists entering the Gaza Strip.
Which in of itself is illegal. You can't ban journalists from reporting on a conflict, genocide, war, anything. You can't do that. That's why journalists exists. To ensure that you don't try and hide your atrocities and your crimes on the battlefield. The fuck?
Aggravates the situation because there are no other voices supporting the journalists on the ground. There are over 220 journalists who have been killed right now. This situation is abominable in and of itself. Of course, it's yet another clear violation of international law, another crime that pushes and urges intervention by member states.
And it's not fucking happening.
We shouldn't lose sight of the fact, of course, that this was a double strike on a hospital, NASA hospital, which has been struck several times in the past. We were hearing from one of the doctors who was there at the time, who was describing that the areas hit were operation rooms and where there were likely to be the greatest number of medical staff and patients as well. And this is just another indication.
So not only is Israel targeting hospitals, which is already a war crime, they are deliberately targeting places where they know the most medical staff and innocent civilians are going to be. How, again, interventionism is like not even the bare minimum at this point. Like full-on military intervention on behalf of Palestinians. Like a full invasion of Israel where these Israeli leaders are being forcibly removed and arrested from their homes or their places of power. Like, intervention, what they're talking about is political intervention, sanctions, economic trade, blah, 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 right? Diplomatic things. We need full-on military intervention at this point on behalf of Palestine. Insane.
Isn't it, that in terms of the Israeli targeted attacks that are happening, not just in Gaza City, which we've been reporting on, with the intention to seize the whole city, but across the rest of the Strip?
Yeah, absolutely, Rob, you're right. We shouldn't lose sight of the fact that what was hit was a hospital. Hospitals should be protected in situation of conflict. Now, my position is that we shouldn't qualify this as a conflict per se, because there are no two armies confronting each other. Gaza.
Fucking yes! Why is Francesca the only one? Literally, how many videos have we watched in the past weeks where I am screaming like this? Why is nobody saying that it isn't a conflict, that it can't be a conflict, because there aren't two militaries? I have said the journalists need to say the words genocide, famine, violation, illegal activity. The only person with the spine, dare I say it, the testicular fortitude to do so is Francesca. I'm going to redeem one from her too, because Jesus Christ. Like, this is insane. I redeemed it as well. This is exactly why we stand Francesca. Like, literally, she is the only person that we have seen consistently say the words to condemn Israel and call them out for what exactly it is they're doing. Francesca, hallowed be her name. You will put respect on her name.
The Gaza Strip, like the West Bank and East Jerusalem, are illegally occupied by Israel. The International Court of Justice has reminded Israel that it has, according to the General Assembly, until September 17, less than a month now, to withdraw the troops, dismantle the settlements.
You're giving them 20 days on top of whatever time, whenever that was issued. Are you fucking serious? September 17th to leave? And then what if they don't? What? The United Nations needs to say you have until the 17th to be completely gone. Not, we're going to give you until the 17th to start leaving. If you have any boots on the ground in Palestine on September 17th, the entire United Nations will shove a boot up your entire collective ass. That's what needs to be said. And Francesca is sitting here like, the United Nations is saying stuff, but it's only 3 weeks. What the fuck? The United Nations is literally one of the most useless organizations in human history.
And start offering reparations to the Palestinians for the harm done. Of course, there is no move in this sense, rather the contrary. The situation in Gaza is apocalyptic. There is no way for the people in Gaza to be safe, in hospitals, in refugee camps, and the famine that is tormenting the 2 million people trapped there. It's again, as I said, abominable.
I want to ask you about the international reaction, broadly speaking, to what's been going on in Gaza. The strongest thing that we've heard so far are countries who say that they are prepared to recognize the state of Palestine. If I understand it correctly, 147 out of 193 members of the UN already do that. Is just the recognition, the intention of recognizing the state of Palestine enough, do you think, to be able to sway opinion?
No, look, the recognition is important. I've said it other times. It makes no sense that member states who have engaged for 35 years in a process that has led to, frankly, the situation where we are, to stay engaged and not recognize the state of Palestine. So it goes without saying that the state of Palestine should be recognized. But this is not something that should take time or should divert the attention from the emergency on the ground, and calling it emergency is absolutely a disservice to the apocalypse on the ground, which is exposing.
I swear to God, I could listen to her speak on loop to help me lull to sleep. I swear to God. I have never in my life seen somebody in the political sphere, in any political sphere, whether it's journalism, whether it's literally candidates or whatever else, pundits, I have never, ever heard anybody speak with this much consistency, speaking truth to power, talking about the issues that are in the way they need to be talked about. Like, she has always batted 1,000. I have never once seen her slip, not miss a single fucking beat.
The gravity of the crimes that have been tolerated. Look, we are not in a situation of normalcy. The crimes we are talking about, starvation, killing of civilians, destruction of civilian infrastructure, and crimes against humanity or forced displacement and genocide are all crimes that call into question the responsibility of member states. Yes. Member states that are not doing enough to stop it are making themselves responsible. They should impose sanctions, they shouldn't trade, they shouldn't sell or buy weapons and intelligence to and from Israel. And the lack of compliance with international law puts the very governments we are referring to into questions. So again, it's incredible.
All of that, yes. And here's the thing. Me with my prop and my prop and my prop and all my props, right? Me saying these things carries very little weight. I get it. I fully understand it carries very little weight. But the vindication, the sheer vindication that everything that I have been saying, every time these subject matters come up, that the nation states, the member states of the United Nations that aren't doing a fucking thing about this are themselves complicit. And that the conflict is not a conflict because it requires 2 equal powers, or powers with a military at least, to be considered a conflict. And the fact that she keeps calling it a genocide, because it is. And highlighting the crimes, because they are. and saying that the complicity is not just in Israel's corner, but in all countries who do not condemn, sanction, or take whatever action they can against Israel. Which is what I've been saying. Once I'm in this office officiando, that's the first thing I'm going to fucking do. And fine, there are other countries with veto powers at the United Nations, but guess what? As Trump has shown us, the one thing he has shown us is with enough brazenness, you can wield absolute power and authority. And when I'm sending my corrupt government straight to The Hague, I can then be like, all right, now it's your turn. France, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, whatever. You are going to join me in blasting Israel into the Bible, into the Old Testament, Zionism, to be clear. Or I am going to absolutely destroy whatever diplomatic, economic interactions you have anywhere. I will fucking bury you. I will do everything in my power to send you straight to The Hague and then straight to fucking hell. That is what needs to be said by every country. There needs to be a me who is either already in office or positioning themselves to get into office that is threatening their administrations, their governments with the exact same ferocity and intent. Because if I'm the only one doing this, it's going to take longer. That's the only thing. That's the only problem. It's going to get done, but it's going to take that much longer. It would be nice to have, let's see, what did they say? 143 out of the 192. So that's what? 49 countries. So we just need 48 more of me. Versions of me, the equivalent of me, shaking their fist at their governments to condemn Israel. We need 48 more. Fight for the 49, I guess. I don't know. 48th president, 48 others. Let's go. 48. 48. But it's only Francesca that's saying it. And that was the main takeaway here. Absolute fucking queen.
Situation where everyone is being responsible for not intervening.
We've seen journalists, as we're talking about, being targeted or being killed as a result of their work in Gaza, predominantly because they are the ones who, as you were describing, shedding a light on what was going on the ground in Gaza. We've also seen, in a wider context, critics of Israel themselves being targeted and attacked by legal means or by sanctions. You yourself were sanctioned by the United States for your criticism of Israel. How effective do you think that is? Do you think that is affecting the message that is getting out from Gaza?
It depends. Frankly, to be honest, the sanctions are heavy to deal with, are undermining the functions of people like me, the judges and prosecutors of the International Criminal Court. Of course, this creating an incredible chilling effect around the possibility to advance justice. However, and I think I bear testament to this, the sanctions only work if we let them work. Doesn't matter. Today, it doesn't matter the personal cost it takes. Those who have chosen to work in the realm, in the field of justice and human rights need to bear the brunt, seek support. For sure, we need the support of many member states and others, but we cannot stop.
Given what's been happening on the ground in Gaza, I want to ask you about the situation with regard to the UN Security Council, because it has been increasingly criticized for a lack of action or an inability to act in some cases.
Because yes, queen, and my hand is full, or else I'd be clapping really loudly. But evidently, this microphone is more sensitive than I thought it was, so I'm trying to not blast everybody's eardrums.
Because of the opposition of some members of it. I want to ask you about whether or not you believe that the UN Security Council still has any teeth, any role when it comes to situations like this.
Evidently not.
Well, of course, the Security Council has a role to play, and it's not new that when it comes to Palestine, as in other cases, unfortunately, the veto power exerted in this case by the United States has hampered the effectiveness of the Security Council. But this shouldn't stop member states. As I said before,
Correct! Oh my god. How many times have we said on this fucking stream that just because the resolution didn't pass or America vetoed or whatever nonsense, whatever fuckery occurred, just because the United Nations said we as a group aren't going to do anything, or as the Security Council, America is going to say no, doesn't change the fact that every fucking country can take their own action outside of the United Nations and be like, well, fuck you guys. We're going to not do this bullshit in the first place. Again, I'm not the first one to come up with it. I'm not the only one saying it. Francesca, who has influence, who has power to wield and authority to wield, is literally saying the same thing. Literally saying the same thing. Arguably, to be fair to both Francesca and her role, I'm saying what she's saying, not the other way around. I would never claim to have had an original thought that Francesca picked up upon. Would never do that. That would be hubris and narcissism that I do not possess. That being said, the vindication and the knowledge that Francesca can, will, and always is on the right side of history, saying the right things, fighting in the right direction, and calling for the right actions is so cathartic. So cathartic.
States are individually responsible to take action to prevent genocide and other crimes. So for them, the obligation not to sell or sell weapons, not to buy or sell intelligence, not to provide intelligence, not to send military aid is a cogent responsibility. It stems from the fact that there are international crimes that can be individually and as states be embroiled in. Therefore, the situation is much more complex. It can be. I mean, I'm not saying that the Security Council should not be considered. At the same time, the state of Palestine has asked for intervention. This is a call to member states to act because Israel has no jurisdiction and no sovereignty over the occupied Palestinian territory. So it's not that they need to wait for Israel to give permission. The blockade should be broken, and this can be done by member states. Have been called for over 2 months now for states, especially those who have ports in the Mediterranean Sea, to send navies with their own flags full of humanitarian aid, doctors and all medical supplies and food and baby formula needed. They need to send the navies to Gaza and break the blockade and support that very important effort that is made by civil society. I mean, the flotilla, you have flotillas leaving from everywhere these days to break the blockade. But why member states are not doing so?
So, is it possible to make Francesca my vice president? Like, serious question. Real talk right here. Because I know the answer is no, because the vice president has to be able to meet all the criteria to become president. I get that. She's Italian. But she can be first lady, right? I mean, Francesca, she could be first lady, right? She could. Like, she is literally painting the exact correct picture. Why aren't these other Mediterranean states not sending in their navy? Because what's Israel going to do? Fire upon a Greek cruiser? An American battleship? A Spanish, I don't know, Carvel or the equivalent thereof? No, they're not. Because Israel isn't fucking stupid. Israel is posturing. And again, it has to be this Zionism cult. Like, it has to be the cult, because each and every single one of these European Mediterranean countries could easily call Israel on its bluff and be like, all right, fine, you have this blockade. Well, we're going to send our navy into Palestine to give Palestinians aid. And if you stop us, you are going to be erased off of the face of the earth. And in any other situation, that has happened throughout history. When it wasn't Israel, the entire world converged to sanction or harm or get in the way of other countries that are doing the same shit that Israel is doing to Palestine. Francesca is literally, it has not missed a single beat, has not missed a single opportunity to hit the correct point home, and has only batted 1,000. Perfect. Full 10 strikes in a row, and bowling, 300 darts, 1,000 batting average. Like, she has not missed. That's all I can say. Our first lady is from Slovenia, and she sucks. So why can't we have the best Italian first? Right. Like, we're not even saying, like, as far as a foreign first lady, like, I don't honestly know that there is a world leader that would be better than her. I would be the president, she'd be my wife, and she'd be better than me outright. Like, I'm not even going to argue with her. Like, hey, honey, sweetheart. Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Francesca, you're correct. Hallowed be your name. What do you think about this? All right, cool. She'd be running this show by de facto, as she should. If anything, she's going to be like, hey, if you want to be a white man and in charge and chop off a few heads, I'll let you do that. I mean, I'm Italian. We've hung a few bad guys in our time. Go have a little fun. I'll go negotiate trade and international relations. No, don't worry. I'll take care of it, sweetheart. Like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Leave Melania alone. I mean, honestly, Melania Trump is irrelevant in U.S. or international politics. And the First Lady's role is largely irrelevant in national and international politics. But if we had Francesca on our team, like, honest, I know she's married. I know she's married. But that's not going to stop me from shooting my shot anyway. I'm going to be like, Francesca, I'm in Congress. I'm working towards getting to become the 48th president. Hear me out. Hear me out. Divorce him. Marry me to be First Lady of the United States of America. You don't even have to look at me. I just need you in my administration in an actual legal official capacity. You can still be his wife. If you want me to sit in the cuck chair, I'll fucking do it if I have to. If it means getting you to be on our fucking team, so be it. I'll just be in the corner like this. Like, whatever, okay? Right, that's because Hillary was running the show, and Bill Clinton was just like, I'm gonna fuck the intern. Right, poly relationship, it's 2025, let's go. I'm just saying, like, I unironically want Francesca to be a part of my administration. I don't know how that would be possible. I don't know how I could get her to agree to it, but I really want that to be the case somehow. All right. Francesca, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued activism. Thank you for everything it is you do. God bless you. And God bless wherever you're from, because I know it's Italy, but like whatever your hometown is. Because it is blessed that you came from it. Holy shit. What do we got here? Qatar?
If you're looking for a business loan.
I'm not looking for a business loan, but thanks for asking.
For Qatar's foreign ministry says Israel hasn't responded to a ceasefire proposal which has already been agreed to by Hamas. Osama bin Javed is following developments.
It's a frustrating wait for the mediators in Cairo and in Doha, as Israel has not responded more than 10 days later to this proposal on the table, which was 98%, according to these mediators, agreed upon by Hamas. What we've heard from the Qatari Foreign Ministry is frustration about what has been the actual response on the ground in terms of more killing, more targeting of journalists, and more plans to take more territory from the people of Gaza.
There is no engagement, meaning that we are still waiting for an answer. And the statements that we are hearing right now do not fill us with confidence that if there was engagement, that engagement would be positive and towards finding a solution. We are talking about the occupation of the sector right now. And as I said, since we delivered the response to the Israeli side, the only thing that we have seen is an increasing of killing.
We also asked him about the...
Which is an answer. I mean, that's the fucking problem, is that Hamas is going out of its way to try and put an end to this conflict, and has been since the conflict began, right? I'm sorry, the unilateral one-sided genocide of Israel against Palestinians. Hamas has been like, listen, we will give you all the hostages. Stop murdering Palestinians. And Israel repeatedly is like, we don't want to stop murdering Palestinians. We want to conquer and annex this land for our death cult. And the response in their actions, and of course, inactions of response in general, is evidence of that. Which goes back to what Francesco was saying. Don't give them the choice. Take action. It's not hard. Israel does not have that big of a military. Yeah, they have nuclear weapons, but what are they going to do? Is Israel really going to nuke France or Greece if Greece sent ships through the blockade? No. No, they fucking wouldn't. And that's the point. These countries could put an end to this atrocity. And they choose fucking not to. Now, that's pretty much all this video is going to cover. What do we got here?
Yes. Almost every day for the past 2 weeks, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has had to answer variants on the same question.
El presidente de Estados Unidos, Donald Trump.
Will she let US forces into Mexico?
The answer
It
better be
started
fucking
when
no.
President Trump signed an order directing the US military to target cartels.
No, pero no.
Not here, said Sheinbaum.
Good.
Estados Unidos no va a venir a México.
The United States is not going to come to Mexico with the military. We cooperate, we collaborate, but there will be no invasion. That is out of the question. Absolutely out of the question.
Good.
She might have thought her point was made, but then, just over a week later, the US Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, said it was launching a cross-border operation with Mexican investigators. But Sheinbaum said her government hadn't been told.
La DEA emite el comunicado.
The DEA puts out the statement. We don't know what it's based on. We haven't reached any agreement with the DEA.
It's an uptick in tension,
See,
but the Trump
this is the thing. This administration is causing international conflict with our own fucking neighbors and ally, by the way. I don't know if you know this. Many people apparently don't. Mexico is America's ally, believe it or not. Mexico is our friend, believe it or not. Mexico and America have been friends since the end of the Mexican-American War. Imagine that. We signed a treaty, and now we get along as friends, as countries should. And this administration is going around sabotaging all these diplomatic relations and trying to intimidate and threaten and harass all of our allies. And it's not just Mexico and Canada, it's also Europe. Like, I get he wants to be a fascist dictator, but he also thinks he's an emperor. He thinks that he is the second coming of Julius Caesar, and he isn't. He is not Gaius Julius Caesar. He isn't. At best, he's Nero. But that would still imply he's an emperor, which he isn't, and never has been, and never will. He's also hopefully not going to live to see next year anyway. Or far into next year anyway. So, all of which is to say, like, this administration doing the things that it is doing, causing the tension that it is causing, is itself criminal behavior. You don't threaten allies. You don't threaten innocent people. You don't try and force your will upon other countries. You certainly don't send military into other countries without that country's permission. Like Venezuela and the 4,000 Marines, which, by the way, is that on our list? I just saw Venezuela. What? Did Trump literally threaten to nuke Venezuela? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Did that seriously fucking
Several international representatives condemned the recent far-right policies of the United States against Venezuela, describing the deployment of warships and nuclear weapons in Latin America and the Caribbean as a regional threat. In this sense, the Peru Libre Party denounced the maneuver as an intrusive intervention that threatens regional sovereignty and peace. Likewise, the Honduran chapter of the International Anti-Fascist Organization warned that the deployment of a missile cruiser and a nuclear submarine near the Venezuelan coast constitutes an imperialistic provocation that violates the Tlatelolco Treaty and seeks to impose fear in the region. Both organizations call on the United Nations and multilateral organizations urgently to stop what they consider a serious threat to the stability of Latin America and the Caribbean. Venezuela denounced the use of nuclear intimidation by the United States in the Caribbean Sea. The permanent mission of Venezuela to the United Nations condemned the escalation of hostile actions and threats from Washington in the region. The Venezuelan representation pointed out that the provocations from the White House now include the deployment of additional warships in the Caribbean, among them cruise missile launchers and a nuclear submarine whose arrival at Venezuelan coast.
This motherfucker is literally deploying a nuclear submarine into Latin American waters as a threat to go after drug lords? Hey, we are going to nuke your we're going to nuke your country if you don't let us put 4,000 Marines in there to fight the drug. Like, what this is unhinged doesn't even begin to this again. Ever heard of impeachment? I have asked this question so many fucking times. What is the limit? What is the line that he cannot finally cross? What line? What line will these Congress people and these Republicans finally point at and be like, nope, threatening nuclear war against, again, an ally, a trade ally. Venezuela, prior to January 20th, was a trade ally of the United States of America. And now we are threatening them with 4,000 Marines in a nuclear weapon. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how Democrats, I get the Republicans maybe, but even then, like, at a certain point, like, you can't just be drinking the MAGA Kool-Aid. You have to be like, buddy, we're not going to threaten Venezuela with nuclear war. We're just not going to fucking, what? No. And the fact that this line, whatever that line is, hasn't been crossed yet. Mind you, the lines that have been crossed include Epstein, include Ghislaine Maxwell, include Nazism, include his own claims of being a dictator, declaring martial law in the nation's capital, threatening to influence the elections and withholding money, like calling for an absolute gerrymandering of the entire map to gain 100 more seats in Congress. Like, so many lines have been crossed. So many. Which one's the line that is finally going to be it? That's what I'd like to know. Once Sam gets into Congress, it has to be our first order of business. Yeah, but that's The thing about that is I can sign and call for impeachment all day long. I can do that first order business. You're absolutely right. But we saw Marjorie Taylor Greene, the blonde psychopath herself, call for an end to supporting Israel weapons and trade, and a total of 6 congresspeople supported her. I think he got a total of 7 votes. That's probably how many votes I'd get for the impeachment. That's about how many votes I'd get for the impeachment. And that's the fucking problem. Now, don't get me wrong. I obviously have to be a firecracker in Congress. I obviously have to be a problem for Republicans in Congress. Yes, I have to make a name for myself. I have to cause a fuss. I have to get on the news. Whatever. Yes, absolutely. But it's so asinine how ridiculously stacked Congress is in his favor right now. What is it that he has to do before they wake up from this fever dream and realize, oh, we're the bad guys and we're going to not just go to prison for life, we are going to die disgraced and penniless if we continue doing what we're doing. You need to drink the dumb juice. Being reasonable isn't the way anymore. Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. I posted it out that the other day. You have to be such an incredibly stupid motherfucker to still be on board with this asshole. Or self-serving. Again, I don't know what this administration is gaining right now from its rise into fascism. And yes, we are going to be a huge problem for everyone in power. That is all we can do. Unfucking believable.
In this context, Venezuela accused the United States government of resorting to nuclear intimidation in the Caribbean region. In an official communique, Venezuela's permanent mission to the United Nations said its government was obliged to inform about the escalation of hostile actions and threats from the government of the United States.
The government of Venezuela is literally saying, hey, by the way, as part of our responsibilities as a member of the United Nations, we want to let you all know that America is threatening us. Holy shit.
Which now include the deployment of additional warships to the Caribbean, including the USS Lake Erie, a guided missile cruiser, and the USS
Boring and
Newport
quiet.
News, a
It's very
fast-attack
hard to
nuclear
hear them.
submarine, which is expected to arrive on Venezuelan coasts at the beginning of next week, as confirmed by various international sources. The Venezuelan government also denounced with the greatest firmness this deployment, as it constitutes a serious threat to regional peace and security. It also
As they should
that
be.
the presence of nuclear submarines of an offensive nature in the Latin American and Caribbean region contradicts the historical commitment of our nations and peoples to avoid the use of weapons.
Well,
and to the
especially
peaceful
considering that this is a
solution
very
of
fiery
disputes,
and
it
loud
represents a clear
condemnation
act
of America.
intimidation, contrary to the letter and spirit of the Charter of the United Nations. The Bolivarian nation also reminded that Latin America and the Caribbean have been declared a nuclear weapon-free zone through the Treaty of Tlatelolco, whose Protocol 2 was ratified by the United States.
So
in
America is
1971, thus
ratifying
committing
or
itself
violating
to
its
fully
own
respect
nuclear
the nuclear
arms
weapon-free
freedom treaty.
character of the region.
Are you fucking kidding me? Like, America is
Venezuela
violating
joined
its own nuclear agreement. Jesus. And this is the crazy part. Now, all of a sudden, climate change and taking action against climate change it's not even newsworthy, because we are literally staring down the barrel, no pun intended, of a potential nuclear conflict with Venezuela. But yeah, sure, let's listen to
meeting
this.
of Latin
These are pretty
American and
quick.
Caribbean for the implementation of regional climate action to be held from August 25th to 26th in Mexico City. The Minister for Eco-Socialism, Ricardo Molina, highlighted during the inaugural session the actions framed in Vertex 1 of the Great Mission Mother Earth Venezuela, which contemplates territorial organization, Around these issues, such as the protection of ecosystems and communities, the just transition of the labor force, alternatives to mobilize climate finance, synergies with the 2030 Agenda and other environmental agreements were addressed. Finally,
You're right,
this
this is pretty
meeting of Latin American and Caribbean
pretty
seeks to
wah,
strengthen
wah,
climate.
wah, wah.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel
Hey,
also
I can hear her.
expresses support for the Venezuelan government in the face of imperialist threats that attempt to destabilize the country. Through his official Telegram account, the Cuban president expressed all the solidarity and support from Cuba to the Bolivarian and Chavista revolution led by President Nicolás Maduro. The strength of the civic military union in Venezuela will defeat imperialist threats and the current attempts to sabotage the country's development.
Maybe we need to start talking to Latin American countries for support for our presidential level campaign, because apparently pissing them off and talking about revolution, the Chavista revolution led by President Nicolás Maduro. I mean, my God, like, I'm waiting for them to talk about Che Guevara and Fidel next. Like, holy crap.
And Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum rejected the recent U.S. threats against Venezuela and expressed her government's firm position against all
Right, a
forms
better
of
villain
US
than Trump.
intervention in the region.
And honestly, his replacement, J.D. Vance, isn't any better. And Musk is even more cringe than both of them. Like, we don't even have good evil villains.
No intervention. We are constitutionally against interventions.
And look how she has female revolutionaries. I know they had a specific name. And Anna, once you're done responding to Apolitical, what were their names? What were the names of these Mexican Las Adelitas. She has literally the Las Adelitas in the background as she's saying "fuck you" to Trump. Like, that's gangster.
Foreign policy
That's gangster
clearly
as
rejects
fuck.
interventionism. And our position will always be for the defense of the people's self-determination.
Esa siempre va a ser nuestra posición. Podemos no estar de acuerdo con un gobierno o no.
One can agree with a government or not, but we will never be in favor of the interventionism of a foreign government in a sovereign country, and I repeat, it is not only due to our own convictions. That should be the position of any Mexican president because it is established in our constitution.
Yeah, imagine that, following your constitution.
In Argentina, the government faces serious corruption charges involving close relatives of President Javier Milei.
Something.
In context,
President
Milei
Milei admits publicly that there's corruption in Argentina? Interesting.
Numerous Argentine media outlets describe the president as...
Isn't he a wannabe dictator, though? Am I missing something there?
Mentioned as the first reference to the corruption scandal that directly involves his sister, Karina Milei, implicated by the then director of the National Disability Agency, Diego Spagnuolo.
So he's admitting there's corruption in his government
related to the purchase
while
of
he
medicines.
is trying
These
to
findings have hardly affected the president's popularity.
become a dictator
as the stolen
himself.
money, as he says, was intended for the purchase of medicines for cancer patients, people with disability, and the elderly.
Following the increased strengthening of cooperation between Beijing and the region, the Chinese government has warned that the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean
so he's
are
crazy.
not anyone's
Absolutely
backyard.
fucking crazy.
Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Yakun said that relations between China and Latin America do not involve third parties. He urged the United States to stop trying to disrupt cooperation by causing discord. Yakun explained that developing bonds with Latin American countries has boosted various economic and social sectors at the local level.
You know what's crazy, though? Every time you see a Chinese spokesperson, they look like the absolute pinnacle of adult. It's like they are the adult in the room. They are the professional. Like, this man looks like he's in charge of shit. And he knows what the fuck he's talking about. And that isn't to say that Claudia doesn't look that way, or... well, obviously Americans don't, or other European folk, or Canadians, or Australians, whatever. But it's like, he gives off aura. You know what I mean? Like, I am Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs. I am him you will listen to me and you will understand that I am an adult in this room. Like, first of all, I could be wearing the same boring suit with the same boring glasses and the same boring haircut, but I would not have the same aura of, oh, that's an adult. No. They would take one look of me, even dressed like that, and be like, oh no, he is about to rip assholes into pieces, shove his hand up there, out their mouths, and use them as a puppet. He is about to be a very angry white man. That's the aura I give off of. This man gives off, I am the adult in this room. Y'all need to stop acting like dumb fucking children. Or else. So, kudos to where it is.
Well received by the countries and peoples of the region.
Well, we start off tonight's show in South Africa, where local media is reporting that a high-level meeting involving top banking executives and the country's finance minister over potential U.S. sanctions is taking place, or rather took place. Now, Sowetan, which is a daily newspaper, said that their conversation focused on an American bill that, of course, is targeting African National Congress leaders over South Africa's ties with Russia and China. The report indicated fears of restrictions on South Africa's access to the SWIFT interbank payment network, a move that
good.
could
I hope
cripple the
South
country's
Africa starts
economy.
joining Traoré.
Now, while the South African Treasury engages its
pushed
counterparts in the U.S. to ease these tensions, local banks are now bracing for the impact. Of course, tensions with the U.S. have escalated since January, with the Trump administration challenging South Africa over much of its domestic and foreign policies.
Normally they don't.
South Africa's top banking executives and Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana have held discussions on the potential fallout if Washington were to impose sanctions on the country. That is according to a report by Sowetan on Monday. The talks, which took place at a recent Banking Association of South Africa board meeting, reportedly centered on those concerns that, of course, U.S. lawmakers are advancing that bill. Well, let's move on now to get more details on this. We're now joined by Sandile Swana, a governance expert and also a political analyst. Great to have you on the
I mean, we do, but we don't. Like that, we got the main takeaway, which is that this administration is trying to fuck with South Africa. Oh, this could be spicy.
And let's set out our first story. You know, xenophobia is the fear or hatred of foreigners. For many years, this form of attack has affected nationals of other countries in South Africa, including Nigeria. But the president of South Africa's Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, Julius Malema, is making it clear he wants to see an Africa free of such division. On his visit to Lagos, Malema paid a courtesy call on Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu at the State House Marina. Malema stressed that solidarity among African nations
to be cooler than me. I'm just saying.
Was the only path to progress, as no country could prosper in isolation. The message is right in time.
I mean, I'm wearing a beret. So that's got to count for something.
Let's hear from the governor
and it was
himself
handmade.
And Malema. Let's go there.
If we were to withdraw African resources in France, there will not be a country called France because they produce nothing. So they're relying
handmade
on
in
us.
China? What?
So we thought it's important just to come and greet and show respect.
It's something that is quite commendable, you know, when you speak truth to power, when you can challenge, you know, authority and, you know, have a clear vision of what should be right and what you believe is right. And I am also a strong Pan-Africanist. I believe that.
Yes.
You know,
Anna, remind me to make an alert redeemable for Pan-Africa. That's what they keep calling it, right? So Pan-Africa, One Africa. Remind me to make one of those redeemable, a Pan-Africa redeemable.
Solution of Africa is within Africans. You know, we should not fold our arms and believe that some people is going to help us. We need to help ourselves.
Okay. Because
I mean, let's see. We're 9:30. But a lot of those videos were really quick, so we might be able to spend a little bit of time watching some of these videos here. That was a little dry. And I think I see another South Africa. So let's see. We have this. That seems a little silly. Xenophobia in America, shocking. Migrant burden on Africa. Nope, we definitely want to cover that.
What you want to do is save hundreds with Liberty Mutual.
The Uganda thing. The fact that we're trying to traffic people to Uganda. Yet that's definitely something that we want to cover. And something that we want to dramatically condemn. Dramatically.
Washington has now started exporting its failures, its problems, and its biases, making them Africa's burden. It is now dumping the migrant crisis on African soil. In the latest, Uganda has confirmed it struck a deal with Washington, D.C. to accept migrants deported from the U.S.
Are you fucking serious? 2 million people? So, I don't love the way she said that because she is kind of parroting the talking points of the administration. It isn't a migrant crisis. It isn't any of the things. Let's hear it again. Maybe I'm not hearing it correctly.
And well, cutting federal jobs isn't the only thing keeping the Trump administration busy these days. Washington has now started exporting its failures, its problems, and its biases, making them
I do like the way she
Africa's
said that.
burden. It is now dumping the migrant crisis on African soil. In the latest,
But that bothers me because there isn't a migrant crisis in America. It's, again, xenophobia and racism. But to that point,
strict conditions. Uganda's foreign ministry has said that it will only accept deportees that have no criminal record, and it will not take unaccompanied minors.
So that statement right there, let's hear that again.
Criminal record, and it will only accept deportees that have no criminal record, and it will not take unaccompanied minors.
So Uganda will only take people who are being trafficked from America if they are not criminals and if the families are trafficked together. Which proves that this administration is literally targeting innocent people and separating them from their families. Which is the exact opposite of what they claim to be doing in the media. Which is obviously the truth, because we know that that's the truth. We know that that's been the truth. We know that what they've been doing, because we've been saying it since they started doing it, is just terrorizing the Latin American community or just whatever racial demographic that they want to happen to target. But the fact that Uganda is making it part of their requirement that you can only traffic innocent civilians with their entire family here is just evidence. Humongous, blatant, black and white evidence that what this administration is doing is terrorizing innocent civilians and trafficking them to apparently Uganda now. The other problem then is, what's Uganda going to do with these people? I don't know that Uganda has a strong, thriving economy that can handle an influx of civilians. Whether or not they enter the workforce, whether or not they end up becoming Ugandan citizens or visa holders. Like, all this is going to do is burden Uganda, so I'm not really understanding that. But the fact that they are stipulating that it has to be innocent people and it has to be families together proves that America is kidnapping and trafficking innocent people. And that's a fucking problem.
Uganda's permanent Secretary of Foreign Affairs has called it a temporary arrangement. It applies to third country nationals who are denied asylum in the US but...
And actually, they want to send Kilmar Abrego Garcia to Uganda now? Proves that the man is innocent and didn't commit the crimes that they said they've been committing, which means that the government is committing a crime by sending Kilmar Abrego Garcia to Uganda in the first place. Which is what he's been saying this whole time. Like, there's a part of me that wants Trump to live long enough for me to prosecute him. And there's also a part of me that just wants him to die so that when he dies, his cult of personality dies with him. And then whoever takes his place will not have the same gravitas as him, which means some of the work that needs to be done can get started a touch early. It's kind of like, it's Schrodinger's death. The longer he's alive, the more satisfying his prosecution will be. On the other hand, the longer he's alive, the more suffering we're going to encounter and deal with. We can exhume his body. Yeah.
Refuse or fear to return to their own home countries. Uganda has also stressed that it prefers to receive migrants that are from other African nations and not from outside the continent. Now, the details, including how many people will actually be sent, are still being worked upon. The deal was first reported by CBS News, but it's not an isolated case because the Trump administration has also made a similar agreement with Honduras, and that's in its push to ramp up expulsions of illegal immigrants from the country. And like I mentioned, Uganda is not the only African country on the list. Just this month, Rwanda has also agreed to take 250 deportees from the United States of America. And in July, the US Supreme Court cleared the way for 8 men to be sent to South Sudan. The list goes on. Then there's also Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, where deportees from US are being accepted only to be repatriated to their own original countries. Now, as far as Uganda is concerned...
Which is nuts. America is going to traffic people to Eswatini so that Eswatini can send them back to where they actually came from. That is a wild agreement that again proves that what America is doing is a fucking crime. Deportation, by definition, requires you to send them to their country of origin, not some other fucking country. How did she say the first part? Exporting his failures and biases? That is what she said, yes. Let's finish this video and then we'll play that again.
Uganda already carries one of the heaviest refugee loads in the world. Nearly 2 million refugees and asylum seekers from...
Okay, so Uganda is actually doing the humanitarian thing. Whether or not they can afford to do it, they are doing the humanitarian thing.
South Sudan, Sudan, and the DR Congo already live there. Now, questions are being asked as to how much more can Uganda absorb.
Yeah.
For the US, it's about showing a tougher line on immigration and pushing deportations far beyond its own borders, far enough so they don't have to deal with it. But for countries like Uganda, for Rwanda, Eswatini, and others, it's about their sovereignty, their capacity, and whether Africa is being forced to shoulder America's crisis. Uganda insists the deal is short-term and temporary, but with Washington striking more of these agreements across Africa, the question is, temporary, but for whom?
That's the fucking question.
And well, cutting federal jobs isn't the only thing keeping the Trump administration busy these days. Washington has now started exporting its failures, its problems, and its biases, making them Africa's burden.
So that's what she said.
And
she's right. I mean, this was a very good video. I like her. She's feisty. And although she isn't using the right words for some of the things, such as deportation when it's trafficking, we will let her slide, because I guess trafficking and saying that on a news network could potentially, I mean, 10 million subscribers. I get how that could potentially cause some kerfuffle. That is a question, though, right here.
We pretty much
And
take
it's
it
from
all.
the same,
Fridges and
news network.
To Uganda next, which says it has reached a deal with the United States to take in deported migrants. The foreign ministry says the two countries are still working out the details of the agreement. Uganda is already home to Africa's largest refugee population, nearly 2 million people, mainly from neighboring countries. But Uganda is setting some conditions, saying it will not accept US deportees with criminal records or unaccompanied minors. Ugandan officials also said they would prefer to take in people with African nationalities. Let's get more on this from journalist Julius Mugambwa in the Ugandan capital, Kampala. Julius, do you have some more details on this deal that's been agreed to?
I think this deal is still scanty. In the first place, the foreign ministry first denied that there's no arrangement like that with the United States government. But this morning, we later learned, government released a statement saying that yes, they are in talks with the US government. Whether you want to call it a deal done or a deal still under negotiations, it's upon someone's assessment. But what we can tell you is the details are being held. No one either from Washington or Kampala is getting us the details that we need to know. But what we understand is that the commitment from Washington is that they are ready to send immigrants anywhere, and Uganda is being looked at as one of them. Uganda has not denied, as we know for now, and we look forward to what will come practically, because what we know now is the diplomatic side. We look forward to the practical side. What will they do? What will happen and when?
And what does Uganda get out of agreeing to a deal like this?
That's what we're trying to wait on here.
I think in the first place, you need to first appreciate that Uganda's had a very long-held bilateral relationship with the United States. It's been bumpy, sometimes going down, sometimes going up. Uganda is just going into elections, and Uganda's president, Yoweri Museveni, perhaps is looking at this diplomatic move as a way of softening his international image. So we do not know specifically what Uganda is taking, what are the advantages, what is the take-home for Uganda. But what we know is that Uganda has previously held strong bilateral relationship with the US, including joining in the fight against...
This was an extremely misleading title. What the fuck? There is nothing that we know of for sure, other than Uganda is trying to, you know, work it out. That wonderful. The US can't just send immigrants anywhere. True, they can't legally, but that hasn't stopped this administration from breaking the law anyway. National or international law. Is this in Israel? Yeah, let's
Get more for less with Tim Hortons $1.
The protest in Israel. I mean, Israel, the country, needs to be dissolved at this point, but it's good that there are some Israelis that haven't given in fully into this death cult.
And thousands of people have again joined rallies across Israel demanding a ceasefire deal in Gaza. The demonstrators say the military's plans to seize control of Gaza City will endanger the lives of the remaining hostages. The former Defence Minister Benny Gantz has called for the opposition to join a temporary unity government to help free the captives. In Gaza itself, the Hamas-run health ministry has recorded more than 60 deaths from Israeli strikes and malnutrition in the past day. This was Deir al-Balah in central Gaza.
So it went from a total of around 100, which was already 100 too many, to 60 malnutrition deaths in one day. The starvation is literally hitting. Palestinians are starving to death in ever-increasing numbers now. Meaning, even if they did get food today, this very second, there would still be thousands of people dying, because that's the problem with starvation and famine. Once that starts kicking in, you still die. because your body has started shutting down organs and literally consuming itself. That's the fucking problem. And the 17th is 20 days too late to force Israel's hand, which it probably won't. It won't be until October or November or December. At that point, half of remaining Palestine is probably going to be dead.
Following an Israeli airstrike. Earlier, Saeed Shahada from BBC Arabic brought us up to date.
Since October 2023, the families of hostages and their supporters going to demonstration every week in order to put pressure on Mr. Netanyahu to have a deal with Hamas. Only 2 deals were done in November 2023, then another one in January this year, and since then there is nothing happened because Mr. Netanyahu's determination to use force and military might to force Hamas and defeat Hamas and let Hamas to surrender and give up what they have and hand the hostages. But on the other hand, Hamas refusing to do that on the Israeli conditions. So the families of hostages and their support still have hope. And one of them, one of the protesters is the brother of one of the hostages held, said instead of Mr. Netanyahu saving lives, he's sentencing the living hostages to death. In addition to that, he put the lives of the soldier into death in a war, is, as he described it, needless, eternal war, which achieved its military objectives long time ago. So there is.
And as this guy is saying, in a very quiet voice, Israel is literally just engaging in genocide. That is exactly what they're doing. They have achieved their military objectives ages ago, and now they're going for full genocide. They are literally trying to implement the final solution against Palestinians. On top of that, they're using famine as a weapon of war. And Netanyahu apparently wants to crush Hamas in military conquest, and Hamas is like, we will gladly surrender so long as you stop attacking. So it's not like Netanyahu isn't going to get his military victory. The condition is to just stop murdering Palestinians. And that's the condition that Netanyahu doesn't want to agree to.
There's no need for this war. So this is a talk from within the people in Israel, and there is more pressure also from the politician in addition to the demonstrators. So Benny Gantz, as was mentioned, the former defense minister, said it's a time for what he called a government of redemption for hostages and service members, mainly the soldiers and people involved from Israel in the Gaza war. And asking this one will be for 6 months, then we'll hold an elections. But after what Mr. Gantz said, Itmar Ben-Gvir, the national security minister, said, it's not Gantz's government. The government of the people they choose is the right wing, and these policies will not accept what he called a surrender deal with Hamas. So he put, doubts on any potential deal to happen with Hamas, not according to the condition of Israel, which is releasing all hostages, no stop-like war, and carrying on the war until you defeat Hamas, and this is contradictory in itself. But this is a position,
as we just said,
of put doubts on any potential deal to happen with Hamas, not according to the condition of Israel, which is releasing all hostages, no stop-like war, and carrying on the war until you defeat Hamas, and this is contradictory in itself. But this is
right. Israel is literally saying, they literally are saying, we want you to release all the hostages, but we're going to continue to fight you and kill you until Hamas is dead. That's literally insane. That you're literally saying, Hamas, we want you to lose any leverage that you have, and we're going to still continue killing the very people that you said you don't want us to kill. Like, how is that? How would any organization agree to that? We're going to eradicate your population whether you give us the hostages or not. Then it's like, well, okay, we're not going to give you the hostages. But the fact that the international community, hearing this, still doesn't do anything about it. Like Francesca, God bless her, she only had a few minutes in her interview. She can't point out every single contradictory statement or criminal intent that Israel has made. She just doesn't have enough time. We barely have enough time with 3 hours. It's insane what Israel is getting away with. To your point in chat, why don't the 300,000 Israelis who were protesting a few weeks ago just break through and bring food to Palestinians? Because they're too fucking terrified of the consequences. Just like the protesters in America and Europe are too terrified of getting attacked by police. Because that point of no return has not been crossed yet. Apparently. At least now everyone knows that Israel doesn't give a fuck about the hostages. But they haven't been giving a fuck about the hostages for a majority of the 2 years of this genocide. And you're right, the hostages are also starving. I have this channel I follow that's currently doing a fundraiser for Palestine. They are banking on stupidity to not catch on to the cluster crap. True. You don't need every point, a few points are enough. Yeah, it's just really fucking crazy how many points there are to make. Because again, it's the blockade that's illegal. It's the genocide that's illegal, the starvation that's illegal, targeting journalists, which is illegal, hitting hospitals, which is illegal, going after citizens, which is illegal, blatantly bragging about genocide, talking about the end goal is the genocide and occupation of all of Palestine. Like, take your pick of crime that's worthy of being The Hague, and the fact that no country is acting on it. Filming themselves, bragging about it. Yeah, it's really insane. But this was this guy talking, not the actual protests. But yeah, let's see if
Build
this
a
one
website
covers the
you
actual
love.
protests. If you thought arresting someone for breaking through a voting line to give them snacks or water was bad, this is so much worse of getting terrified for the food and suffering.
Roads in the city as anti-war protests spread across Israel.
Well, that's good, at least, that they're
Demonstrators are demanding an end to the war and the return of captives held in Gaza. They are accusing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of prolonging the war for his own political interests.
Which is
Our
true.
correspondent, Willem Marks, joins me now. Willem, you've reported from Israel multiple times, so I think you're very familiar with what we're seeing here because you've also reported on those protests. What
As
are you
they
seeing
should
there
be.
today?
So
They
those
should have been doing this
visuals you just
a
saw
year
there
ago.
are on one of the main highways going north from Tel Aviv. They've lit fires to try and stop traffic. You've also had protesters blocking major highways between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. This action is being led by the hostages' families across the entirety
There we go.
of Israel over the course of today.
The line that finally was crossed was the hostage families being betrayed by their government and galvanizing the population. So I guess all we have to do is have enough victims of ICE throughout America to where the families of those victims stand united, band together, and revolt against this administration. So we just need to wait until 2 years from now when enough people have been disappeared and trafficked for those victims' families that remain behind to organize.
It began at 6:29 a.m. That's an important time. That's when Hamas launched its attacks into southern Israel back in 2023. What we're seeing over the course of the day will be marches beginning from around 2 p.m. across the country. Huge.
Now, granted, they need to be doing this for the next 90 days straight. Here's a problem, though. Palestine doesn't have 90 days. Palestine doesn't have 90 minutes, 90 seconds, okay? Palestine is actively starving. Actively fucking starving. Okay? So, these activities need to be escalating accordingly to force Netanyahu to step down and to stop these attacks.
Protests, including outside the homes of various Israeli ministers. Ron Dermer, the Strategic Affairs Minister, Gideon Saar, the Foreign Minister. They have groups of family members outside their homes with bullhorns, with foghorns, with banners, shouting the names of hostages, asking for them to be saved. Really, really strong protest today across the country.
What are they saying? Have the demands or has the language evolved?
It's interesting. Some of the members of those captive families met today, this morning, just a couple of hours ago, in Tel Aviv, in Hostage Square, as it's now known, where the marches will culminate tonight. And they were talking to members of Israeli media, being reported in some of those Israeli websites. Really strong language. One of the mothers of one of the captives saying, this is clear that the only pressure that Netanyahu feels is public pressure, other parents talking. And I just want to bring up some of the language because it was really very stark. One father pointing out his son, Eitan Horn, as being held captive there for 690 days, let's not forget, talking about the Netanyahu government as being one that, quote, abandons its citizens, collapses the basic moral framework of sanctity of life and mutual responsibility. Some more strong words from this father, saying that the government was recently responsible for, quote, another deliberate torpedo operation of an agreement to return hostages. You'll remember Hamas just last week agreeing to 2 phases of hostage releases. Netanyahu responding he wanted them released all at once, that the conflict would continue with this assault on Gaza City, the occupation of Gaza City by Israeli forces. This father of Eitan Horn saying that decision was a stab to the heart of the families and the entire nation.
Willem Marks, thank you very much for your reporting.
Thank you for your reporting. Honestly, I can't ask for too much more than that. It would be nice to be, actively calling it a genocide instead of a conflict. But hey, I guess Al Jazeera it has teeth, but not fangs. There are dozens starving to death every day on top of the bombings. Exactly. In fact, it's getting to be scores, not even dozens. Scores, which is going to now slowly escalate into hundreds. It's disgusting where we are with all this. Remember what they did to Saddam when he was caught? More world leaders need to be held accountable. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Right. He wasn't even the worst. They also tortured Gaddafi. And Gaddafi probably didn't even do half the shit that America claimed he did. The IDF has TikTok. I hate Israel with a passion. Have you seen the channels with the cute young IOF soldiers shaking their asses on camera to get support for Israel? It's disgusting. And all of them died. All of them have actually been killed in action, which is probably why we're not seeing any new videos from them. Thank God, because that is disgusting propaganda. To literally sell genocide using sex. Are you fucking kidding me?
See what scholarships you may qualify for. Visit
I don't give a shit what scholarships I qualify for. Oh, great. More ads. So this is Belgium.
They want people to remember war, its atrocities and its victims. Journalists got together in Brussels reading out names of the Palestinian journalists who were killed in Gaza. They denounced international inaction and paid a tribute to the brave young journalists who lost their lives covering the war. Their work was the only independent account of what is happening there.
Imagine needing to write, print, and establish a sign that says, journalism is not a crime at a protest. Imagine having to do that.
Since Israel bans international media from entering Gaza.
Well, that's the thing, right? During World War II, captive nations and the workers that were supposed to be making bullets and bombs for Nazi Germany didn't. They sabotaged the shit out of that by either making the rounds not fire, making them duds, whatever the case may be. They fucking did that while being occupied by Nazis. So how is it that arms manufacturers in America and Germany and whoever else is sending them to Israel aren't fucking doing the same thing? Because again, quality testing, you can fudge that. You can be like, all right, here's 10 rounds that work and then an entire batch that doesn't. Like, you're absolutely right, pop culture. Absolutely.
Mais la révolte, bien sûr.
It's emotions mixed with anger. This must stop.
Yes.
We hope our governments will change their positions and stop being complicit because they don't take measures when journalists are killed.
Maxim Kovaras has been documenting war and its ravages and says the international community betrayed the innocent civilians of Gaza.
C'était très important.
It was important to remember the journalists who lost their lives trying to inform us of the reality on the ground.
A moment of silence and a vow to continue the fight so that impunity comes to an end.
There's been
What
growing
a fucking
outrage.
sign. Like, that kills me. That fucking kills me right there. Journalism is not a crime, and that's a sign at a protest protesting genocide. So, not only are we protesting the genocide, but we also have to remind everyone that journalism isn't a crime, and reporting on the genocide isn't a criminal act and is in fact protected. Like, there is so much being said in that sign that it is just unbelievable that in modern times you have to convince a society, to convince the government, that reporting on genocide is not criminal and should be condemned in the most aggressive means possible. Whoop.
Impunity comes to an end.
There's been growing outrage at the killing of journalists in Gaza. Media organizations are calling for the perpetrators of the crimes against journalists to be punished and for European countries to take a tougher stance against Israel.
Yes.
These are changing times in Europe. People say that governments can no longer remain silent. More than 200 former EU ambassadors and senior officials blamed the bloc for failing to act on Gaza.
We were, of course, very shocked by the fact that there are also journalists that have been the victim of these strikes, which is unacceptable. They are doing their work. They are pursuing their work in extremely dangerous conditions.
Here in Belgium, the government is under pressure to take a tougher stance. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Maxime Prévost warned recently that a failure to impose sanctions on Israel and recognize Palestine could lead to a major political crisis.
Yes.
For Dario Van Flatteren...
But again, there's no sense of urgency. Everybody is now saying the things that are politically expedient to say without any sense of urgency. They're like, yes, I agree. We should do something about it. I agree. This could be a crisis. I agree. This is a condemnation that we should be making. Yes, I agree. We should be outraged that journalists are being killed. So where's the sense of urgency? Where's the actions? Where's the follow-through?
Journalist with the standard, a decision on recognizing Palestine won't be an easy one.
There are 5 parties in this government. 3 of them, the more left ones, really put pressure to do more, to make sanctions against Israel, be more strict, and also recognize the state of Palestine. But you also have 2 right-wing parties in this coalition, and they seem not very eager to really evolve on that point.
Prime Minister Bart de Wever from the nationalist Flemish NVA has said recognizing Palestine is pointless unless Hamas is disarmed and captives are released.
That's bullshit. Who the fuck cares about Hamas being armed or disarmed? Genocide is never justified. And this Nazi-looking motherfucker saying what he just said, that we're only going to put an end to this if Palestine lays down its weapons. Yeah, we're only going to stop gassing the Jews if they stop resisting Nazi eradication. What? That's what this Nazi motherfucker just said. In German, no less. He said that shit in German. Because Belgians do speak German. And French. The U.S. journalists should be outraged. Correct. It's a war crime. Correct. By estimated or exact count, how many countries are we at that are saying boo Israel? Well, that's the thing. No country other than the 143 that have suggested or have recognized Palestine. So, yeah, 143. Let's just call it that. 143 countries have condemned Israel. Targeting journalists is a war crime. Tons of months late already. Absolutely. The citizens in most countries are demanding change, but the governments the governments in most of the global south support Palestine. The problem is mostly Europe, US, Australia, and Canada. And actually, a majority of countries support Palestine, generally speaking, 3/4. And again, the few countries that have members in their government that are even speaking out against Israel are not acting on it. It's just words. It's just platitudes. While scores of Palestinians starve every single fucking day, and Israel goes out of its way to murder more journalists and civilians and attacking hospitals, all of which are war crimes. No, they don't believe what they say. And yes, even Poland. Which isn't the happiest note to end on. Sorry about all that. But it is time. So it is 10 o'clock. That is the end of our stream. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for joining us. I see some new faces here. Thank you all for joining us. Like, follow, share, subscribe, the whole 9 yards. We stream Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. And we talk about news and politics and my policy positions whenever possible. Tuesdays are focused on U.S. politics. Wednesdays are foreign politics and affairs. And then Thursdays is a recap that will have a hodgepodge of both U.S. and foreign affairs. We also have been trying to add a couple of bits of conspiracy theory in there, as well as feel-good stuff, such as like breaking medicines and technologies as well. So, I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope to see you tomorrow. Sorry for ending on such a stressful note, but try and wind down tonight and have yourselves a much better evening while the world is apparently aflame. On that note... Nope, sorry. On that note, President Samuel Ronan, out.